I woke up confused. One moment, I was on a battlefield with soldiers chasing me, and the next I was lying in a rundown little house with a beautiful young woman calling me husband. Turns out, I died in my old life. I was a top mercenary, and my soul ended up in the body of some guy with the same name as me. This world is called the Great Qin Dynasty. It's like ancient China, but here there are way more women than men, about 8 women for every 2 men. So the government actually assigns wives to men when they come of age. You're breaking the law if you refuse. The old me in this body was a sickly guy living with his mother. She went to the government office and got him 2 wives, a pair of sisters. The older one is Su Muyue, who was out working odd jobs for food. The younger one, Su Mush, was right here taking care of me. She's gorgeous, but skin and bones. The problem? The original guy was too weak to even touch his wives, and it drove him crazy. He secretly doubled his medicine dose and ended up poisoning himself to death. That's when I took over. Su Mush was terrified of me. She kept kneeling and begging me not to do anything, because the doctor said this body needs 2 months of rest. Apparently, the old me used to slap and beat both sisters whenever he got frustrated. No wonder the poor girl flinched every time I moved. I told her to stand up and stop kneeling. The floor is cold. She looked shocked, like nobody had ever shown her that kind of basic kindness before. Then my stomach growled. She brought me a bowl of wheat bran porridge, basically hot water with grain husks. It was awful, scraped my throat going down. When I coughed, she burst into tears thinking she'd burned me and tried to kneel again. I grabbed her arm and pulled her back up. I told her it's fine. The porridge just tastes bad, that's all. She said it's all we have. Mother went to the river to catch fish. I laughed and said, keep feeding me then. Bad or not, I need to get strong so we can be a real family. She turned bright red. Just as things were getting nice, some jerk started yelling outside the door. Su Mush grabbed my wrist and warned me it was Yang Dahu, the local bully. She said Mother told us to stay away from him. But I'm not the weak guy who used to live in this body. I grabbed the old kitchen knife off the table and headed for the door. I don't care if he's a tiger. I'll pull his teeth out myself. Mush tried to stop me, but I was already out the door. Standing outside was Yang Dahu, a big, beefy thug who bullies everyone in Pingshire village. Next to him was his sidekick, Lu Laosan. These two have pushed people around here for years. Nobody stands up to them except the village chief. I walked out with the kitchen knife tucked behind my back and asked Yang Dahu what he wanted. That's when Lu Laosan opened his mouth and said something that made my blood boil. He said I'd promised to lend my wives to them for fun. Since I'm too sick to touch them anyway, what's the point of keeping them? Mush dropped to her knees behind me, sobbing, begging me not to give her and her sister away. She said they'd work hard, have children for me. Just please don't hand them over. I dug through the original guy's memories, and, sure enough, that worthless idiot had actually agreed to this when he was drunk. What a piece of trash. I helped Mush up and told her straight. I'm not giving my women to anyone. I'm keeping you both. Now relax. Then I stepped outside and faced them. I told them it was just drunken talk and to get lost. Yang Daha didn't take that well. He told Lu Laosan to rush me. Lu Laosan charged in with a smirk, figuring a sick guy like me would be easy pickings. I pulled out the kitchen knife. Lu Laosan laughed and dared me to actually use it. So I swung. He barely dodged, fell on his butt, and went pale. He couldn't believe I'd actually do it. Then Yang Dahu came at me himself, fists swinging like a bear. My body is weak right now, so I couldn't match him in raw strength. But I'm still a trained mercenary in my head. Right before his punch landed, I ducked low, flipped the knife around, and dragged the back of the blade across his stomach. It tore his shirt and left a bloody scratch. If I'd used the sharp side, his guts would have spilled out. Lu Laosan threatened to report me to the authorities. I told him to go ahead. Under Great Qian law, breaking into someone's home counts as robbery, and I'd be within my rights to kill them both in self-defense. He had no idea if that was true or not, so he shut up. I told them to scram before I finished the job. Yang Dahu cursed at me, swore he'd get even, took one last look at Mush, and limped away with Lu Laosan helping him. Once they left, I nearly collapsed. This body is so weak that just that little bit of action left me dizzy and drenched in sweat. I leaned against the wall to catch my breath. Mush ran out, worried sick. I grinned and told her I was fine. Her husband still got it. Then she said something that surprised me. She told me I was amazing, that a real man should be exactly like that, strong enough to protect his family. She said watching me fight made her happy. I sat on the low wall, took her hand, and she let me hold it without pulling away. This sweet, beautiful girl is mine now. In my past life, every woman I was with was just business, no real feelings. This felt different. I looked at her and asked if I could kiss her. She turned red, couldn't even answer, and just closed her eyes. I pulled her close and kissed her. Right as I kissed Mush, I heard a cough behind me. I turned around, and there was my mother. Well, this body's mother, son sure. She's an old woman with gray hair, carrying an empty basket on her back. She did not look happy. She scolded Mush for not keeping me in line. Poor Mush jumped away from me, terrified. I stepped in and told my mother it wasn't her fault. We were just talking. Then I sent Mush off to air out the bedding so she could escape the awkward situation. I took the basket off my mother's back and helped her sit down. I told her to stop blaming Mush. The girl's life is hard enough already. My mother looked surprised. She said she'd never seen me care about other people before. But she smiled, and for the first time in both my lives, I felt what a mother's warmth is like. She sighed and said she couldn't even catch a single fish at the river. All we had left was enough food to scrape by for a few days, and she was hoping my older wife, Su Miue, would bring back some sweet potatoes when she returns from her work. At dinner, it was the same wheat bran porridge. Mother and Mush both gave me the thicker parts and drank the watery stuff themselves. Mush even poured her portion into Mother's bowl. When Mother asked her if life was hard, Mush said no, but she hid her face so nobody would see her crying. I watched this from the window, then went back inside, pinched my nose, and drank the whole bowl in one gulp. I need the nutrition. I can't afford to collapse. I'm the only one who can turn things around for this family. At bedtime, Mother took Mush away to sleep in her room. She was worried that if we slept together, we wouldn't be able to control ourselves. So I had the room to myself. I sat cross-legged on the plank bed and started practicing the Taoist 8 brocades, the internal energy technique a hidden master taught me in my past life. I felt a warm current flow from my core out through my whole body. I practiced all night, and by morning I felt more refreshed than if I'd slept 8 hours. My body already felt lighter and stronger. When I opened my eyes, Mother and Mush were standing in the doorway looking shocked. I made up a story, told them I'd met a Taoist monk recently who taught me to meditate for my health. That seemed to satisfy them. Breakfast was wild vegetable patties, bitter greens mixed with a tiny bit of rough flour, slapped onto the side of a pot. They tasted awful, but at least they filled you up, unlike the watery porridge. I ate 4 and felt decent. Then I grabbed the old basket and a dull machete and headed out without telling anyone where I was going. Our village, Pingshur, sits between mountains to the south and a river to the north. Sounds nice, but there are tigers in the mountains, no boats for the river, and barely any farmland. Everyone here is dirt poor, but I'm a survival expert. I headed into the hills. Nobody from the village goes deep into the brush, which means the wild resources should be untouched. I hacked through the undergrowth with the machete, and sure enough, a brown bird burst out of the bushes right in front of me, a wild hen. Where there's a nesting hen, there are eggs. I found her nest. Over 20 eggs, still warm. I cracked one open and drank it raw. Not exactly tasty, but pure protein. I drank 5 and finally felt alive again. I packed the rest carefully into my basket with dried leaves between them so they wouldn't crack. A little further on, I found another nest, another 20+ eggs. I took those too. 50 eggs total. That was enough. Being greedy would only attract attention, and I'm not ready to stand out yet. I thought about going home, but decided against it. If I brought the eggs back, Mother wouldn't eat them. She'd insist on saving them. So instead I carried them to the town and walked into the Chengdu restaurant. I called over the waiter and asked if they buy wild goods. He took a look, said sure, and went to get the owner. The owner wasn't too impressed. Wild eggs aren't exactly a delicacy. He offered me 2 coins each and told me next time, bring mushrooms instead. I hesitated for a second on the price, 2 coins per egg, since I had no idea what the market rate was. But the restaurant owner said if anyone offers more, he'd pay me double the difference. That told me the price was fair. 50 eggs, 100 copper coins. My first real money in this world. Then I did something smart. I took 20 coins and slipped them into the owner's sleeve as a thank you. He was surprised at first, but then he looked at me with respect. He's just a hired manager making 2 silver tails a month, so a little extra cash made him happy. He told me to bring him anything I find in the mountains from now on, and he'd always give me a fair deal. He even said if anyone gives me trouble, I can come to him. That 20 coins just bought me a reliable business contact. I went to a street vendor and spent 10 coins on 5 meat buns, big fluffy ones stuffed with lamb, dripping with juice. I ate 2 right there and saved 3 for Mother and Mush. Then I hit the grain market. 10 coins got me 5 pounds of mixed grain. Not fancy, but it keeps you alive and it's cheap. I tucked the remaining 60 coins into my shirt pocket. No matter what area you live in, having money in your pocket gives you peace of mind. I was about to head home when someone called my name. It was Wu Lair, a tall, skinny troublemaker the original me used to hang around with. This guy was the reason the old me picked up so many bad habits. I told him coldly to stay away from me. He noticed my bags of food and asked where I got the money. Then he brought up his business idea. He wanted me to turn my 2 wives into prostitutes so we could split the profits. My face went dark. I told him sure, but only if he sends his own mother out first. He got mad and lunged at me, expecting the same old pushover who'd curl up on the ground and take a beating. Instead, I pulled the rusty machete out of my basket and cracked him across the shoulder with it. It was too dull to cut, but it hit like a club. Then I jumped on him, pinned him down, and punched him in the face over and over, dozens of times until his nose was bleeding and both eyes were swelling shut. I put my foot on his chest and told him to cross the street next time he sees me coming. He begged for mercy, called me Brother Hung, and swore he'd never bother me again. I spat on the ground and walked away. Beating that piece of garbage felt like finishing something the original me had wanted to do for years. My chest felt lighter. When I got back to the village, Mother and Mush were frantically searching for me. Mother nearly had a heart attack. Mush looked like she'd been crying. I grabbed them both by the hand, Mother on the left, Mush on the right, and walked home. I pulled out the 5 pounds of grain and told them no more porridge tonight. We're eating real food. Mother gasped and asked where I got the money. Then she said something that made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. She asked if I'd sold Mush to a brothel. Mush's face went white like the sky was falling on her. I rubbed Mush's head and told them both to relax. I earned this money myself, fair and square. Mush still looked like she was about to cry, so I held her hand and told her right in front of Mother, relax. I'm waiting to get better so I can make you mine. Why would I give you away? She turned bright red and couldn't look at me. Mother asked how I earned the money. I lied and said I caught some fish and shrimp at the river and sold them in town. If I told her I went into the mountains, she'd never stop crying and scolding me. Even with my lie, both Mother and Mush started weeping. They begged me not to risk my health for food. They kept calling me the backbone and lifeline of the family. I realized this is exactly why the original me was so useless. These women treated him like a glass doll. I told them to stop crying. I said the Taoist meditation is really working and my body is almost healed. To prove it, I jumped up, did a backflip, and threw a full set of military combat punches right there in the yard. Mother's jaw dropped. She started thanking the ancestors, saying the gods must have answered her prayers. Her son is finally getting healthy enough to carry on the family line. Mush peeked at me and turned red again. I could tell she was thinking about what happens when I'm fully recovered. I told them once Miyue comes back, she doesn't need to work anymore. I'll provide for the whole family. Meat at every meal. No more wheat bran porridge. Mother smiled and nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe a word of it. To common folks here, eating meat every day is something only the county magistrate can dream of. At dinner, Mush stretched the grain by adding extra water. I finally convinced Mother and Mush to each eat one of the lamb buns. Mush ate hers while nervously watching my face the entire time, like she expected me to hit her for it. After dinner, I dug through the storage and found something my father left behind. A proper hunting bow made of ox horn and deer sinew, plus a dozen iron arrowheads. My father had been a legendary hunter. Even tigers avoided him in the mountains. The original me was too sickly to ever learn. But I'm not the original. In my past life, I was an expert with every kind of cold weapon, bows included. I set up a crude target in the yard, a wooden board with circles drawn in soot. I started shooting. Within minutes I had my aim dialed in, hitting 7 or 8 out of 10. That kind of accuracy would be rare even among veteran hunters or military archers. In the age of cold weapons, A bow is the ultimate ranged weapon. Within 70 meters, I can hit whatever I want. I wiped the sweat off my forehead, satisfied. With this bow, I can take down real game now. Then my instincts kicked in. I sensed someone watching me from our storage shed. I couldn't see them, but I felt it. That sixth sense kept me alive through my whole mercenary career. I knocked an arrow, aimed at the shed, and started counting down from 3. Before I hit one, a thin figure stumbled out with her hands up. It was a skinny girl in a worn-out floral jacket, standing in the moonlight looking terrified. I recognized her. Her name was Chow Chow. I frowned and asked her what she was doing hiding in my shed. She just stood there, head down, unable to say a word. The girl's name was Pan Chow Chow. Her father, Pan Lao Wai, is the village deadbeat, ugly as sin but somehow produced a pretty daughter. She's young, but already growing into a real beauty. We pressed her for answers, and she finally broke down crying on the ground. Mother mentioned that just last month, she'd tried to arrange for Chow Chow to marry me, but old Pan turned her down flat. He said he wanted to sell his daughter for a good price. I told Mush to go talk to her gently. Mush pulled her up and asked what happened, but the girl just kept sobbing. I lost my patience and yelled that if she doesn't stop crying, I'm sending her back to her father. That did the trick. She told us her father is planning to sell her to a brothel. She said she'd rather die. Mother grabbed her hands right away. She's always hated Pan Lao Wai, and Xiao Xiao had been her top pick for a daughter-in-law before the Su sisters came along. In Mother's eyes, Xiao Xiao is the perfect wife. Pretty, good hips for bearing sons, and hardworking too. She can farm, sew, embroider, the whole package. A wife like that would earn more than she eats. I told Xiao Xiao she could stay the night, but come morning, she'd need to figure things out on her own. I've got enough problems feeding the people already under my roof. Mush tugged my sleeve and whispered that we should help her. Then she caught herself, worried she'd overstepped, and washed my face nervously. I just smiled and told her she's too kind-hearted. I softened a little and told Mush to bring Chow Chow some food. That's when Mother made her move. She said according to Great Qian law, once a woman is married, her birth family has no power over her anymore. So if I marry Chow Chow, her father can't sell her. Chow Chow dropped to her knees in front of me instantly. She begged me to take her as a wife. She promised to work hard, feed herself, give me sons. She even offered to just be the nanny for my other wife's children if I think she's not pretty enough. I rubbed my nose and sighed. This dynasty really has pushed women to rock bottom. A beautiful young girl, on her knees, begging a man to marry her just so she won't be sold to a brothel. Guys back in my old world couldn't dream up something like this. Mother kept nudging me to say yes. But even though I wouldn't mind another pretty wife, this is a world where multiple wives are normal. It felt wrong to take advantage of a desperate girl. I told Mother that marrying a wife isn't like picking up a sack of rice. It means another mouth to feed, and we're barely scraping by as it is. That made Mother hesitate. Chow Chow panicked and said she'd earn her own food, work every day, and only ask for a little leftover soup in return. I told her to calm down. I said she can hide in our shed whenever her father threatens her, and I'll try to talk some sense into him. But as for marrying me, that's not just my decision. I have 2 wives already. They've been good to me, and I won't bring someone new into the family without their approval. Right on cue, Mush appeared in the doorway holding a bowl of food. In her quiet, shy voice she said, "Husband, please marry Chow Chow. I'm willing to share you with her." Mush stood in the doorway with a warm smile, and I could tell she meant it. She genuinely wanted me to marry Chow Chow. I shook my head and said what kind of wife helps her husband find another woman. She just straightened my clothes and said as long as I'm happy, she'll do anything. She added that Chow Chow is known in the village for being hardworking, and having her around to look after me would let her and Muyue go out to work without worrying. Mother was grinning ear to ear, clearly thrilled. I told them to slow down. Chow Chow is younger than me and hasn't even reached the legal marriage age yet, still a few months away. For now, let's just clean up the shed and let her sleep there. Mother agreed, but I could see in her eyes she considered this a done deal. She knows her son. I've been dying to consummate my marriage, and now a pretty girl shows up at my door for free. She figures I won't hold out long. Chow Chow thanked me through her tears. I told her to thank Mush instead. Chow Chow immediately started promising to work hard, earn food, and help raise babies someday. Mush, soft-hearted as always, almost cried along with her and told her they'd be sisters. no ranks, no hierarchy. Mother laid down one rule. Chow Chow can sleep in the shed, but she has to earn her own food. Chow Chow nodded hard and said that's no problem. I stood there and realized what just happened. I got my marriage arranged for me by my own mother and my own wife. Not the worst deal, honestly. I looked Chow Chow over. She's already developing a nice figure. Give her a couple years and she'll be another beauty. The thought of all of us sharing one big blanket on a cold winter night crossed my mind. She caught me staring and looked away, blushing. I think she noticed my eyes were a lot hungrier than my words. After Mother took Chow Chow to set up the shed, I noticed Mush looking down, her mood clearly off. I asked if she regretted letting Chow Chow stay. She panicked and said no, then admitted the real problem. Chow Chow is so capable, and she's clumsy at everything. She's scared Mother will kick her out once there's a better option. My heart softened. I teased her and said she should work hard to give me a son after we consummate things. She turned red and asked what if she has a girl instead. Would I throw her out? I told her girls are great. A daughter is Daddy's little cotton jacket. She looked up at me with teary eyes, horrified, and asked why I'd trade our baby for a jacket. I wanted to slap myself. It's just a saying from my old world. I explained I love daughters, and if she gives me a son, she gets a reward, but if she gives me a daughter, she gets a bigger reward. That finally made her smile. Next morning, we all had some thin soup. Chow Chow got a bowl too, thanked us 100 times, and headed out before sunrise to find work. I told Mother and Mush I was going out, then grabbed my basket, water gourd, the bow, and a quiver of arrows. I followed the trail I'd cut yesterday and went deeper into the mountain. It felt like 1,000 eyes were watching me, just animals checking out the stranger in their territory. I'm a jungle warfare expert from my past life. I've spent months at a time living in forests on missions. A mountain like this? I'll never go hungry. I found wild boar tracks and droppings from a deer. Since I brought the bow today, I was going for big game. I crouched down in the tall grass, completely still. Pheasants and rabbits wandered past me, and I ignored them all. Then my patience paid off. A young brown deer strolled right into my line of sight. The deer was a solid animal, at least 160 pounds. But what really caught my eye wasn't the meat. It was the pair of forked antler velvet on its head. Wild deer grow velvet around age 2, and it forks by age 3. This pair had to weigh at least 1 kilogram. Sell that to a medicine shop, and I'd make serious money. I drew my bow and aimed at its neck. The strange thing was, the deer spotted me, but walked toward me instead of running. It held its head high like it owned the place, snorting at me like I was just another animal that should bow down to it. This thing had clearly never seen a human before. I let the arrow fly. It punched straight into the deer's neck. Blood sprayed everywhere. The deer flipped over, twitched a few times, and died. But I had a problem. No way I could carry a 160-pound deer down the mountain alone. And even if I could, walking through a starving village with a whole deer on my back could get me killed. I had to think about my family's safety. So I used the dull machete to cut off the 4 legs and 2 racks of ribs. Took forever with that blunt blade, even though I know animal anatomy well. I sliced off the antler velvet too, cleaned up the blood, packed everything in the basket under a layer of grass, and buried the rest so the smell wouldn't attract predators. I was exhausted and starving. I found a pheasant nest, drank a few raw eggs, then gritted my teeth and hauled the heavy basket down the mountain. I reached the Chingda restaurant past noon. The owner was much warmer this time. He recognized the meat right away and was impressed I could hunt deer with a bow. He offered 400 coins for the 2 rib racks and 6 coins per pound for the legs. For legs came to about 40 pounds, 240 coins. Total, 660 copper coins. I kept 600 and pushed the remaining 60 toward him. Same move as last time. Keep the relationship sweet. He slapped my shoulder and called me a real friend. Then he gave me a tip. A rich man in town, Squire Zhao, has a son preparing for the imperial exams. The kid heard that eating monkey head mushrooms boosts your brain. The squire is offering 10 silver taels for a single mushroom, an insane price. The owner said he'd only told me about this. I smiled and said even if I know about it, those mushrooms are rare treasures in the mountains. Finding one takes pure luck. Before I left, a waiter ran down and tossed 2 oil paper packages into my basket, half a roast goose, leftovers from a customer. The owner waved it off like it was nothing. But I knew what it really was. He was returning my generosity. A man who understands give and take. That's someone worth doing business with. I bought 2 more lamb buns and ate them on the way to the medicine shop on the east side of town. On the way, I passed through the busy market and saw something that made my skin crawl. Japanese swordsmen had set up a fighting ring, advertising some Eastern martial arts school. I don't care what era it is, those island people are always this arrogant. But there was nothing I could do about it right now. I just hoped this dynasty would grow strong enough to feed its people and kick these foreigners out someday. At the medicine shop, I put the antler velvet on the counter. The old shopkeeper squinted at it and offered me 1 silver tael, saying the quality is decent, but they're a bit small. He reached for them, but I pulled them back. Sorry, I said. I changed my mind. Not selling. I couldn't help but laugh inside. That medicine shop owner tried to cheat me like I'm some clueless farmer. 1 tael of silver for a pair of quality antler velvet? No chance. I grabbed the velvet back and headed for the door. The old man panicked and called out his 2 workers, trying to intimidate me. I pulled out my machete and told them plainly, I'm a hunter from the mountains. Killing them wouldn't be any harder than butchering a wild boar. If they tried to cheat me and I found out, I'd burn their shop down in the middle of the night and they'd never prove a thing. The old man's tough act crumbled fast. He offered 4 taels of silver. He swore I wouldn't find a better price anywhere in the whole county. I thought about it and figured he wasn't lying this time, not after I'd scared the life out of him. I took the money, for little silver lumps, heavy in my hand. So from 1 deer, I made 4 taels of silver plus 600 copper coins. That's enough to feed my whole family for 2 or 3 years at our current standard. But I'm not settling for not starving. I'm a man from another world. I want real comfort, nice house, good food, fine clothes, beautiful wives. And now I have a real shot at it. I bought some proper white rice, wheat flour, and a few pounds of pork belly. Then I started walking home. My 6th sense kicked in again. Someone was tailing me. I pretended to bend down and tie my pants, and spotted 2 figures sneaking behind me. One of them was Wu Lair, the guy I'd beaten bloody yesterday, plus another local thug. I pulled the machete from my basket and waved it at them. They turned and ran like rabbits. Pathetic, but I made a mental note. Having enemies who hold grudges is a problem I'll need to solve. I got home at sunset. Mother and Mush were waiting in the yard. Mush ran to meet me. Mother started dusting off my clothes, scolding me for disappearing all day. I pulled them both inside and bolted the door. I couldn't wait to show them what I'd brought. I laid everything out on the table like a magic trick. The roast goose, white rice, flour, pork belly. Mother's eyes nearly popped out of her head. She hadn't seen meat in I don't know how long. Mush was stunned too and asked where I got the money. I held up the bow and told them I earned it hunting. Then I pulled out the real prize, a small bundle with 4 silver nuggets and several hundred copper coins inside. Mother shrieked, threw herself on top of the money to hide it, and snapped at me for being so careless. She said if the wrong person saw this much silver, we'd be in terrible danger. I shook my head and laughed. I'd already bolted the door. I told her to take the silver and hide it somewhere safe. She clutched it to her chest, breathing hard, like she was holding our family's entire future in her hands. And honestly, she was. Mother figured the old Taoist immortal was behind everything. My healing, my hunting skills, all of it. She said if she knew his name, she'd build a clay statue of him and burn incense every day. Mush asked how I made so much money. I told her I shot a deer, cut off the legs, ribs, and antler velvet, and carried it all down the mountain to sell. She looked at me wide-eyed and asked if I really did it alone. I flexed my arms and told her not to worry. A little meat, and I'll recover all the energy I spent. Then I made my move. I told Mother my body is fine now, and I want to consummate with Mush tonight. Mother raised her eyebrows, but didn't object. Mush, on the other hand, shrank back and said we should wait for her sister to come home first. She said they'd agreed that Muyue should go first. I wanted to argue, but looking at her shy, serious little face, I gave in. I told her fine, we'll wait. But she's not getting away from me forever. Mother reminded us not to tell anyone about the silver. Mush nodded obediently. I told her she should stop calling Mother mother-in-law, and just call her Mom, like I do. Mush lit up, looked at Mother for permission, and when Mother smiled and agreed, she called out, Mom, like it was the happiest moment of her life. I think in her mind, being allowed to say that word meant she truly belonged and wouldn't be thrown out. Mother worried that Xiao Xiao hadn't come back yet. I told her not to stress. The girl either found somewhere else to go or her father dragged her home. She'll be fine. I asked Mother to set aside half the pork belly. Tomorrow I'm going to visit Chinfuzi, the village chief. He's the only educated man in Pingshire village, a former scholar who never made it past the first exam and ended up staying here as village head. But in this little world, his word is law. Even Yang Dahu and his thugs are afraid of him, partly because his grandson works as a constable at the county office. Getting on his good side is essential. That night, I brought Mush back to my room. Mother didn't stop us this time. Mush pressed herself into the corner, her face a mix of shyness and excitement. I took her hand and told her she's beautiful, like a fairy who stepped out of a painting. She whispered that her sister and Xiao Xiao are the pretty ones. I told her I couldn't wait any longer. She reminded me we'd promised to let her sister go first. I put on my most pitiful face and said I was suffering. She asked what we could do about it. I leaned in and whispered an idea in her ear. Her eyes went wide and she covered her mouth, asking if that was really okay. I told her there's only one way to find out. Then I winked and told her to go shut the door so we don't wake Mother. What happened that night? Well, let's just say it was a very eventful evening, and I'll leave it at that. Next morning, Mush saw the white rice porridge I'd prepared but had no appetite at all. Her face was flushed. She glanced at me and ran outside to dry vegetables in the yard. Mother asked what was wrong with her. I grinned and said she probably ate too much last night. I grabbed the pork belly, hung it on an iron hook, and headed out to visit Chinfuzi. Walking through the village carrying meat was a bit conspicuous, but one piece of pork isn't outrageous enough to cause real suspicion. When I reached the village chief's house, I didn't bother knocking. I hopped over the wall and landed in his courtyard. There sat Chinfuzi, white-haired, wearing a threadbare old scholar's robe, reading a book in his chair. I coughed to announce myself and teased Chinfuzi about still studying at his age. He spun around and cursed at me for climbing over his wall instead of using the door. That's the kind of relationship we have, or at least, that's the kind the original me had with the old man. I cracked a joke about how he spent his youth chasing women at brothels instead of studying, and he laughed and called me a brat. I tossed the pork belly on his table and told him it was a gift. He stared at it, swallowed hard, but refused, saying my family has too many mouths to feed. I told him to shut up and take it. I earned the money myself, and if he ever runs out of food, he can come eat at my place. He looked genuinely surprised and called me by my childhood nickname, Erguzi, Little Mutt. I told him to knock it off, or I'd lose my temper. He just kept saying it and laughing. Then a man came running in, out of breath. He said there's a big scene at my house. Pan Laowai showed up with his daughter and is causing trouble. Then the man looked at me and asked if I'd slept with Xiao Xiao. My smile froze. I cursed and said someone's spreading lies about me. Chinfuzi gave me a suspicious look and asked if I really did it. I told him absolutely not, then explained the whole situation. Xiao Xiao's father wants to sell her to a brothel. She hid in my shed last night, and she's been begging to marry me. The rumor that I slept with her? She probably started it herself to make sure her father can't sell her anymore. Once people think she's been with a man, her value drops and the brothel deal falls apart. Chinfuzi nodded and asked what I wanted to do, accept or deny. If I accept, Xiao Xiao becomes my wife, but her deadbeat father becomes my father-in-law. If I deny, she gets sold to a brothel. I said I'll take the wife, but refuse the father-in-law. I want Xiao Xiao officially cut off from Pan Laowai. Chinfuzi said there's only one way to do that, pay money. I told him fine, but I'm not letting the old scumbag rob me blind. I pushed the old man and told him to hurry. Let's get to my house first. When we arrived, a crowd had already gathered at my front door. Pan Laowai was standing there with his chest puffed out. Behind him, Xiao Xiao was on her knees with her hands tied, her face covered in bruises from being beaten. Mother stood at the gate with Mush beside her. Pan Laowai was screaming that I'd ruined his daughter, and now she can't be sold for a good price, so I have to pay him for the loss. Mother was furious, yelling right back at him. What kind of animal sells his own daughter to a brothel and then has the nerve to complain about it? Pan Laowai grabbed Xiao Xiao by the hair and forced her to speak. Crying, she said exactly what she'd planned. Li Heng and I have already pledged ourselves to each other. I gave him my body last night in his shed. Pan Laowai threw her to the ground and pointed at us, screaming that I'm a beast who ruined his girl. Mother went pale. She probably thought I'd really snuck out to the shed last night and taken Xiao Xiao's virginity. Everyone in the crowd believed it too. In this world, a woman would never lie about something like that. Her reputation is more important than her life. The only person who knew the truth was Mush. She and I were together all night. We didn't go all the way, but she'd kept me company in other ways, and we fell asleep in each other's arms. I didn't have time to go anywhere, but she couldn't exactly stand up and announce that to the whole village. Then Mush spotted me pushing through the crowd. I walked up to Pan Laowai and told him to get away from my door and stop embarrassing himself. He went crazy. He grabbed a stick off the ground, eyes blazing red, and charged straight at me. "Who are you calling a bastard? Who are you going to kill?" Chen Fuzi's booming voice cut through the chaos just as Pan Laowai charged at me with a stick. The second the old man heard the village chief, he dropped the stick like it was on fire and fell to his knees. He started wailing about how my family wronged him, how he'd already made a deal with a brothel madam for 10 silver taels, and now that I'd ruined his daughter, she wasn't worth as much anymore. Mother and Mush came out and bowed to Chen Fuzi. Mother called Pan Laowai an animal for trying to sell his own child. Chen Fuzi raised his hand and told everyone to be quiet. He said he'd settle this fairly, by the rules, with the whole village watching. Both sides agreed to let him judge. Then he turned to me and asked point blank, "Did I really sleep with Xiao Xiao last night?" Every pair of eyes in the crowd locked onto me. I kept my cool and said yes, it happened. I said I couldn't control myself. Xiao Xiao looked at me with grateful eyes. Mother's face went tight, but Mush grabbed her arm and stopped her from saying anything. Mush knew the truth. She and I had been together all night. But she understood what I was doing. Pan Laowai jumped up like he'd won, shouting for everyone to witness my confession. Chen Fuzi asked Xiao Xiao directly, "Was it by choice?" She kowtowed to him and cried, "I've always admired brotherly." I gave myself to him willingly. Pan Laowai tried to slap her. I grabbed his wrist mid-swing and told him if he touches her in front of me again, I'll cut his hand off. I threw him aside and untied Xiao Xiao's ropes myself. Chen Fuzi suggested the two families just become in-laws. I shut that down immediately. I told him I'll marry Xiao Xiao, but I refused to have Pan Laowai as a father-in-law. Pan Laowai yelled back that he doesn't want me as a son-in-law either, just give him the money. So Chen Fuzi proposed a deal. Treat it like a sale. Pan Laowai sells his parental rights to Xiao Xiao, takes the money, and from that day forward has no connection to her whatsoever. She becomes a Leaf family woman, nothing more. Pan Laowai demanded 10 taels. Mother exploded and offered one, saying a girl who's already been used isn't worth more. They nearly came to blows. Chen Fuzi silenced both of them and set the price at 3 taels of silver. Fair compensation for raising Xiao Xiao all these years. After the payment, Pan Laowai and Xiao Xiao would be permanently cut off. No more father-daughter relationship. She'd only be known as a Leaf family wife. Mother hesitated. We'd just gotten that silver, and now we had to hand some over. But I smiled and told her to go get the money. 3 taels is less than what the antler velvet sold for. Getting a hard-working, beautiful young wife for that price? I'd make that trade every day of the week. Mother went inside and came back with the silver. Chen Fuzi told Xiao Xiao to give her father one final bow. She knelt down in front of Pan Laowai and pressed her forehead to the dirt, hard. The old man's face twisted into something complicated. Maybe regret, maybe just bitterness that he didn't squeeze out more money. Hard to tell with a man like that. Pan Laowai glared at me and warned that if I mistreat his daughter, he'd come after me with his life. I told him to take his money and get lost. If he shows up at my door again, I'll put an arrow through him. Mother handed over the 3 taels, clearly pained. Pan Laowai grabbed the silver, bit it to check if it was real, stuffed it in his shirt, and scurried away like a rat with stolen cheese. Chen Fuzi sighed at the pathetic sight and warned him never to bother Xiao Xiao again. The crowd broke up. Chen Fuzi smiled and told me to treat Xiao Xiao well. She's a good kid. I told Xiao Xiao she'd have to stay in the shed for now, but once I earn enough, I'll build a proper house. She said she doesn't mind at all, just having a roof is enough. I touched her bruised face gently and cursed Pan Laowai for beating his own daughter this badly. She shook her head and said it's fine. Consider it the price of repaying his years of raising her. That chapter is closed now. I sent the women inside to eat, then pulled Chen Fuzi aside. I told him straight, Pan Laowai will be back. Right now he has 3 taels to keep him happy, but the second that money runs out, he'll come looking for more. Chen Fuzi thought about it and agreed that's exactly the kind of thing that old scumbag would do. He told me to come find him if it happens, and he'll handle it. But he warned me, no matter what, Pan Laowai is still Qiao Qiao's birth father, so I can't lay hands on him myself. I pointed at my own face and grinned. I told him to take a good look at who he's talking to. If that old man comes at me, I'm hitting back regardless of who he is. Chen Fuzi walked off muttering something about me being unteachable. Back inside, Qiao Qiao was sitting quietly while Mush cleaned her wounds. Mother stood in the doorway admiring her two pretty daughters-in-law, then announced she'd go render the pork fat into lard and save it for when the girls get pregnant someday. With Mother gone, I couldn't resist teasing Qiao Qiao. I told her my reputation is now ruined because of her little story, and I got nothing out of it. She apologized with her head down, saying she had no other choice or her father would have dragged her to the brothel that same day. I told her I know, that's why I played along. But I said she can't let me carry the blame for free. Maybe tonight we should go to the shed and actually do what she told everyone we did. She covered her face with both hands, completely flustered. Next to her, Mush had this funny look of superiority, like a senior wife who's already been through it all, even though we technically haven't gone all the way either. I laughed and told Qiao Qiao I was just kidding. I ruffled her hair and told her to settle in. This family can afford to keep her. As I walked out, I thought about it and smiled. Watching this skinny girl grow into a full-figured beauty under my care, that three tails was the best investment I've ever made. In the tool shed, I dug around until I found an old iron hook. I bent it into a two-pronged fork, strapped it to a wooden pole, and made myself a simple fishing spear. I headed to the river without telling anyone. When I got there, the bank was already packed with villagers, men, women, old folks, kids, all hoping to catch something for dinner. I shook my head. With this many people splashing around making noise, every fish within a mile would have fled long ago. I took my spear and walked away from the crowd to a quiet spot by the river. I sat on a rock and waited. Catching fish requires patience. You have to wait for them to come close, then strike fast. After about 15 minutes with no luck, a small crab crawled out between the rocks. I grabbed it, smashed it on a stone, mashed it into paste, rolled it into a ball, and tossed it in the water as bait. Then I heard someone call my name. I turned and saw a woman in a floral top standing nearby, Yang Yume. She's a young widow in our village. Her husband was killed by bandits on their wedding night before they even consummated the marriage. People in the village spread rumors that the bandits had their way with her, and on top of that they say she's cursed, a husband killer. So everyone avoids her. She lives completely alone. She smiled sadly and said it's nice that I'm at least willing to talk to her. I told her not to let the gossip get to her. She perked up and said the rumor about the bandits was a lie the villagers made up. I looked her over. She's quite pretty. Spending her whole life as a widow seems like a real waste. She caught me staring and snapped at me playfully. I changed the subject and asked if she was here to fish. She said she was hoping to catch one so she could make soup that would last a few days. I told her if I have a good haul today, I'd give her one. Just then she pointed at the water. A fat carp was drifting toward us, following the scent of my crab bait. I signaled her to keep quiet. The fish swam right up to me. I raised the spear, held my breath, and drove it straight through the carp's body. Done. Yume was thrilled. She said whoever marries me would be the luckiest woman alive. Then she looked at the fish, biting her lip, clearly wanting it but too embarrassed to ask. I pulled the fish off the spear and dropped it in her basket. Told her to take it home and make soup. I'll catch another one. She stared at me like she couldn't believe it. She mentioned that last time she asked an outsider for a fish, the guy demanded disgusting favors in return. I just shrugged and said it's only a fish, no big deal. Her eyes got watery. She said something flirty, that she'd love for me to take advantage of her, if only I were interested. Then she realized what she'd said, turned bright red, mumbled something about coming over for fish soup sometime, and ran off. I scratched my chin and grinned. A woman who's been married definitely knows how to talk. Made me feel a certain kind of way. Maybe I should go try her fish soup sometime. Her cooking, I mean. I waited a while longer and speared a big grass carp. I tossed it in my basket and strolled home whistling. At home, Mush and Xiao Qiao were cooking grain soup, and Mother was fanning the rendered pork fat to cool it into a white paste that'll keep for a year. I slapped the fish on the ground and announced we're having fish stew tonight. Mush's eyes lit up like I'd brought home treasure. In a world where people can barely eat, a man who brings food home is the greatest hero a woman can have. I pinched her nose and teased her, telling her to stop looking at me like that or she'd start drooling. She went bright red. Ever since our night together, I taught her a few colorful expressions, and she knew exactly what I meant. Chow Chow grabbed the fish right away and started cleaning it with quick, practiced hands. Mother nodded approvingly. Out of all my wives, Chow Chow is clearly the one who impresses her most. I told Chow Chow to relax, she's family now. But she shook her head stubbornly and said she hasn't married me yet, so she's just someone the Lee family took in. She promised to work even harder once we're officially married. I let it go. These ideas are so deeply planted in these women that changing their minds will take time. Dinner was a massive pot of fish soup, a whole pot of water with some oil floating on top, a pinch of rough salt, and the fish tossed in. That's what fish soup for several days means here. But watching them eat drove me crazy. Mush refused to touch the fish meat, only sipping the broth. Chow Chow squatted in a corner by herself with her bowl, refusing to sit at the table. And Mother kept piling all the good pieces, fish, goose, everything, into my bowl, eating nothing herself. I slammed my palm on the table and stood up. Everyone froze. Mush put her chopsticks down, terrified. Chow Chow stood up stiffly. Mother looked confused. I asked Mother point blank, "Am I the head of this household or not?" She said, "Of course." I looked at Mush and Chow Chow and asked if they'll obey me. Both nodded desperately, begging me not to be angry. I waved Chow Chow over and told her to sit next to me. She hesitated, so I raised my voice slightly. She ran over and sat down immediately. Then I told Mush to sit. She wiped her tears and obeyed. I cut the fish into pieces and put a big chunk in each of their bowls. Mother, Mush, Chow Chow. Then I ordered them to eat it. They looked at each other nervously, but started eating. I bit into a goose leg and told them my new rule. From today on, even if there's only one bite of food in this house, it gets split equally. Nobody goes hungry. And when Muyue comes back, same deal. I told them it's my job as a man to put food on the table. They don't need to worry about that. Just take care of Mother. Mush and Chow Chow exchanged shocked looks. In this dynasty, men eat first and eat the most. Even good husbands who earn well never care whether their wives are full. What I just said was basically unheard of. Mush said softly that just having a husband who cares about them is more blessing than they deserve. Chow Chow agreed and added that since I can hunt, fish, and even scare off bullies like Yang Dahu, I should focus on bigger things, maybe study for the imperial exams or join the military. They'll handle everything at home. I appreciated the thought, but I have no interest in serving this dynasty. The great Qin Empire is weak and falling apart. Enemies pressing from the west and east, the army losing every battle, the emperor clueless about governing. Not worth my loyalty. Just then, a woman's voice called from outside the gate. "Li Heng? Auntie Sun? Anyone home?" Mother peeked out the window, and her face went cold. "The widow Yang? Since when are you mixed up with her?" Mother gave me a look when she heard Yang Yumei's voice. I told her I just ran into the woman at the river and gave her a fish, nothing more. I peeked out the window and figured she was probably here to return the favor with a bowl of fish. Mother warned me sternly. Yumei is a widow whose husband died on their wedding night. She's bad luck, a curse. Stay away from her. I thought that was nonsense, but I wasn't dumb enough to argue with my own mother about it. I just nodded and headed outside. Behind me, I heard Mother grumbling about how eager I was. Mush and Chow Chow wisely kept their mouths shut. Yumei was standing at the gate, holding a bowl of fish meat, looking nervous. I could tell this wasn't really about returning a favor. She just wanted to see me again. And honestly, I understood why. She's a pretty young woman surrounded by creepy men who all want her body, but none of whom would actually marry her. Everyone treats her like poison. Then I come along, give her a fish for free, talk to her like a normal person, and don't ask for anything in return. Of course that hit her hard. I came out smiling and asked what brought her over so late. She said the fish was too much for one person, so she brought some over. Then she asked quietly if Mother was upset. She'd heard some of what Mother said. I apologized and told her older folks have old-fashioned ideas. Don't take it personally. She sighed and said Mother wasn't wrong. She really is unlucky. I told her firmly to stop thinking that way. Her husband dying was his fate, not her fault. Blaming her for it is just people being cruel and ignorant. She stared at me, shocked, and asked if I really believed that. I said of course. She started crying again, not sad tears, more like she couldn't believe anyone in this world would defend her like that. Even her own family treats her like a curse and won't let her visit. I told her when I have extra catches, I'll send some her way. It's all I can do for now. She looked at me with those wet eyes and asked why I'm so good to her. Because I feel sorry for you, and also because you're gorgeous. That's what I thought. But I just smiled and didn't answer. Mother called from inside, sharp tone, saying dinner's getting cold. Yume flinched, shoved the bowl into my hands, told me to hurry back, and ran off. I watched her leave. That waist, those legs, that figure. She's a fully developed woman, unlike my younger wives who still have some growing to do. I wondered when they'd fill out like that. Then I noticed I still had her bowl. I'd need to return it. Daytime wouldn't work, too many gossipy neighbors. Maybe I should go at night. And if she invites me inside, should I say yes right away, or play it cool for a moment first? I was still daydreaming when Mother called again. I snapped out of it and went back in. After dinner, I practiced with the machete in the yard. Mush and Chow Chow sat on little stools watching, clapping, and cheering, which made me show off even harder. But after a while I stopped, frustrated. This dull machete is garbage. I need a proper weapon. A good blade could save my life someday. Chow Chow came over shyly and said my moves looked amazing. She told me she'd heated bathwater and asked if I wanted to wash up. I grinned and asked if she'd help me bathe. She yelped and backed away, saying we're not married yet. Mush should do it instead. Mush smiled calmly and said she'd take care of it. In front of Chow Chow, she was more confident now. After all, she's my actual wife, and after what happened between us the other night, helping me with a bath isn't exactly a big deal anymore. Chow Chow filled up a big wooden tub with hot water in the shed. I stripped down, jumped in, and called Mush over to scrub my back. She blushed, but came over and started rubbing my shoulders with her soft hands. I was enjoying it so much I started humming. Then I pulled her into the tub with me. She protested, but I wasn't taking no for an answer. Let's just say we had ourselves a very good time in there. What I didn't mention to Mush was that I could sense Chow Chow outside. The curious girl couldn't help herself. She crept up to the crack between the shed doors and peeked inside. I caught her reaction before she bolted away like a scared rabbit, hands over her mouth. That night, Chow Chow couldn't sleep. The next morning she couldn't even look at me and ran off the moment she saw my face. Mush and Mother thought it was strange, but I just laughed to myself. She's going to be my wife eventually anyway. No harm done. After breakfast, I felt amazing. Days of practicing the Taoist 8 brocades were paying off big. The sickly fog that hung over this body was fading and clean energy was rising. If fighting Yang Dahu before had been a struggle, now I could handle 5 or 6 of him without breaking a sweat. And this is just the beginning. In my past life, this technique let me run across rooftops, see through fog for 100 meters, and take on dozens of professional killers alone. Even that was only scratching the surface of what the technique can do. In this world without guns and bombs, mastering it would make me nearly unstoppable. Chow Chow came out with a wash basin and offered to clean my clothes. I laughed bitterly. I only own one set. If she washes them, I'd have to walk around half naked. I joked about borrowing her clothes, and she stammered that she only has one outfit too, so she'd end up with nothing on. We both laughed, but it hit me. This whole family doesn't have a single change of clothes. That's a problem I need to fix soon. I headed up the mountain with my bow and machete. When I reached the spot where I'd buried the deer remains, my heart sank. Something had dug up the carcass. Flies were swarming everywhere. I checked the tracks and droppings. Wild boar. I relaxed a little. Old hunters say in terms of danger, it goes boar first, bear second, tiger third. Not because boars are stronger, but because they're aggressive and territorial. A full tiger might ignore you, but a boar will charge at you until one of you is dead. Still, I'd rather face an angry boar than a tiger. With just this old bow and a dull machete, I'm not confident I could survive a tiger encounter. I reburied the deer deeper, then settled into the tall grass to wait for prey. The blood smell in the area would attract smaller predators. I waited until nearly noon before a fat badger, a pig badger specifically, the meatiest kind, came sniffing around. These animals are valuable, worth good money no matter the era. Every part of them is useful. I drew my bow, took aim, and released. The arrow hit the badger square in the body. It squealed, rolled around on the ground, and started snapping its jaws wildly at the air in a frenzy. I walked over calmly. One look at the badger's eyes told me it was already dying, just the last burst of energy before the end. Sure enough, it stopped moving a few moments later. I pulled the arrow out, picked it up, about 20+ pounds, and tossed it in my basket, covering it with fragrant grass to hide the smell. I ate some dried wild vegetables, washed them down with water, rested briefly, then headed to town feeling pretty good about myself. When the restaurant owner saw the badger, his face lit up like I'd handed him gold. He started clapping and calling me his lucky star. I asked what the big deal was. He explained that the town magistrate, a man named He Pingin, has been craving badger meat for days, and the owner couldn't find any. Now I just walk in with one. He told me to wait while he brought it upstairs. If the magistrate is happy, there might be bonus money in it for me. A few minutes later, the owner came back grinning and said the magistrate wants to meet me. I followed him up to a private room on the 3rd floor. A middle-aged man in a blue robe with a long beard sat in the seat of honor, with 2 other men beside him. That was He Pingin, the head of Dongming Town, a real official with actual power. He looked me over and said it's rare to see a young man with good manners who isn't nervous around authority. He asked where I'm from. Here's where I did something clever. I told him I'm a hunter from Pingshire Village, and that the restaurant owner had specifically asked me to search for a badger because he wanted to find one for the magistrate. I said the owner even offered me extra money to make sure I'd hurry. Every word was designed to make the owner look good in front of his boss. The owner caught on immediately and shot me a grateful look. He Pingin smiled at the owner and praised him for his effort. Then the magistrate got serious. He asked how many hunters are in my village. I told him just me and 2 old-timers who can barely move anymore. He asked about other villages. I said probably not many. Hunting takes skill and experience. One mistake, and you become the prey. He asked to see my bow. I handed it over. He tested the draw and asked if I could kill a wild boar with it. I said within 50 meters, no problem. Then he told me what's really on his mind. Qinglong Mountain has a wild boar problem. The boars are coming down, destroying crops, and hurting people. He wants to do something about it, but has no manpower. The county won't send a single soldier for something like this. His idea is to organize a small team of civilian hunters to deal with the boar threat. I was surprised. I'd assumed this magistrate was just another useless bureaucrat who only cares about fancy food. But he actually thinks about his people's problems. My opinion of him went up considerably. He dismissed me and had one of his men slip 2 silver taels into my hand as a reward. Not a fortune, but unexpected money is always welcome. Downstairs, the owner came running after me, practically dancing with joy. He kept thanking me for making him look so good in front of the magistrate. I smiled and told him to skip the flattery. Just pay me fairly, and we're even. The restaurant owner offered me 5 taels for the badger, one more than the usual price as a thank you. I tried to give him a cut like I usually do, but this time he firmly refused. He said after what I did for him today with the magistrate, taking my money would make him look bad. Fair enough. I asked him where to buy a decent weapon. He told me about a shop called the Hidden Arsenal, run by a woman named Miss You. The weapons there are real military-grade stuff smuggled out of army camps. Technically illegal, but she clearly has connections nobody wants to mess with. I headed straight there. The shop wasn't big, but the quality was obvious. Everything on the walls was genuine military equipment. Behind the counter sat a pretty young woman in a green dress, half asleep. She glanced at my shabby clothes and didn't bother getting up. I looked around the 1st floor and shook my head. Good stuff? Sure, but nothing special. She got annoyed and asked if nothing was good enough for me. I told her these weapons are fine compared to farming tools, but that's about it. That really ticked her off. She said the good stuff is upstairs, but it's not for sale with money. You need skill. She told me to follow her. The 2nd floor had wooden red boxes on the racks instead of displayed weapons. She told me to look around. I opened one box and found a beautifully crafted Japanese samurai sword. I put it right back. She was furious and asked what's wrong with it. I told her the quality is fine, but I won't touch anything made by those island dogs. She paused, then gave me a look with something like respect. She said she didn't expect a little hunter to have such national pride. I told her a hunter with backbone is bigger than an emperor without one. She warned me that kind of talk could get me arrested. I shrugged and said I'd deny everything once I walk out the door. I opened another box and my eyes lit up. Inside was a short-handled broadsword, pitch black, made from some kind of unusual metal. I picked it up and spun it in a quick, clean arc. It felt perfect, heavy enough to kill a tiger, balanced enough for precise work. Miss Yu's eyes widened. She could tell from how I handled it that I'm not just some village hunter. I'm a trained expert with blades. She told me the sword is called Yuan Ming, forged by a famous craftsman from the Western Rongdi people. It's not on any official rankings, but it could rival the best-named weapons in the world. I asked her price. She said it's priceless, literally not for sale. Even if it had a price, a hunter like me couldn't afford it. No offense, just facts. I asked if everything upstairs is off-limits then. She smiled mysteriously, held up one finger, and said she could let me have the sword on credit, but I'd have to do something for her in return. Credit blade, I blurted out without thinking. Miss Yu gave me a strange look and asked what I was talking about. She asked if I want the sword or not. I said yes immediately. A weapon like this doesn't come around twice. She told me something odd. She said right now I'm useless to her, but if I ever become someone important, I shouldn't forget her kindness. When I pressed her to explain, she waved me off and said she'd come collect the favor when the time is right. She asked my name, and I told her. I asked if she's worried I might disappear with her treasure. She smiled coolly and said nobody in the entire Qinglong County dares cheat you Mengdai, not unless they're tired of living. Before I left, I thanked her and also acknowledged the person hiding behind the screen in the room. That caught her off guard. She hadn't expected me to notice. What I didn't know was the conversation happening after I walked out. Miss Yu is apparently the 7th princess of the empire, working in disguise. The figure behind the screen was her teacher, some kind of fortune reader in black robes. He told her I was originally destined for a short life, but somehow my fate had been rewritten. He said my energy now blazes like a signal fire, and in troubled times, I'd have the destiny of a king. The emperor has no sons, so eventually a princess will inherit the throne. The teacher urged her to recruit people like me now, while she's far from the palace, to build her power base before her rival, the 3rd princess, outmaneuvers her. I knew none of this. I just walked out with my new sword feeling like $1,000,000. I stopped at a cloth shop and bought some floral fabric for my women to make new clothes. Then I picked up a few pounds of rough rice, packed everything into my basket, and was about to head home when Wu Lair appeared again with that stupid grin on his face. He called out to me like we're old friends, asking how much money I made today. I pulled out the Yuan Ming sword and pointed it at him. His eyes went wide, and he started stammering that we're buddies, no need for violence. I told him we are absolutely not friends, and to say what he wants before I lose my patience. He said he's been observing that I've been hunting for money lately. I rolled my eyes and told him a blind man could figure that out just looking at my outfit. Then he pitched his idea. He wants to bring his gang along to hunt with me. Safety in numbers, he said. Help each other out in the mountains. I actually paused to think about it. He had a point, not about himself, but about the concept. When I killed that deer, I had to leave half the meat behind because I couldn't carry it alone. Having helpers would solve that. But Wu Lair and his crew? Absolutely not. They're all drunks and gamblers. Rotten to the core. If I'm going to recruit people, I'd pick young guys from the village, 18 or 19 years old, no trade skills, nothing to do except farm. Clean slates I can train. I told him he actually gave me a decent idea about finding partners. He got excited, tried to throw his arm around my shoulder, and started babbling about how we'd get rich together and then go gambling. Before he could finish that sentence, I had the tip of Yuan Ming pressed against his chest. I pushed the sword tip against Wu Lair's chest and shoved him to the ground with one hand. He asked what my problem is. I told him to get lost. I'd never bring his crew of drunks and gamblers into the mountains with me. He tried to threaten me, saying I have no choice. I grinned, raised the sword, and swung. He screamed and ran, crashing into a candy vendor on his way out. I sheathed the Yuan Ming sword carefully and headed home. When I got back, Mother was collecting dried wild vegetables in the yard. Mush and Xiao Xiao had swept the whole courtyard spotless. Mush lit up when she saw me. Xiao Xiao turned red and mumbled, "Big brother," without looking at me, still embarrassed about peeking through the shed door last night. I called everyone inside and bolted the door. I pulled out the rough rice and then the floral fabric I'd bought for them to make new clothes, enough for all the women, including Muyue when she gets back. Their eyes went wide. In this world, a new outfit is an impossible luxury. They've been wearing the same rags for years. Mush and Chow Chow stared at the colorful fabric like it was made of gold. I could tell I'd hit the mark. New clothes made them even happier than meat did. Mother started trembling while holding the fabric, scolding me for spending money recklessly. I smiled and pulled out 6 silver nuggets plus a big handful of copper coins and dropped them on the table. Chow Chow's jaw dropped. I squeezed her cheek, smooth and bouncy, and she let out a little sound and looked away. I laughed and went to my room to rest. After I left, I could hear Mother lecturing the 2 girls through the wall. She told them to treat me like a master and care for me like a little brother. She made them swear never to tell anyone about the money. She said she'd save every coin for when the family grows. Mother was clearly most worried about Chow Chow. The girl still has a troublesome father and isn't officially married into the family yet. Mother took the fabric to a neighbor woman who's good at sewing to get clothes made. I fell asleep without meaning to and didn't wake up until the middle of the night. When I opened my eyes, Mush was lying next to me, watching me with those bright, curious eyes. I smirked and asked if she was hoping I'd do something naughty to her. She gasped and buried her head under the blanket like an ostrich. I laughed, pulled her into my arms, and let's just say we had another very active night. I didn't wake up until late the next morning. Mush was already gone, up early to cook despite everything I put her through last night. I felt a little guilty. She never complains, just gets up and takes care of the family. The old saying is right. A good woman wears a man out. I was stretching my sore back and getting out of bed when the door opened. Chow Chow walked in, face bright red, eyes avoiding mine. She slowly knelt down and whispered, "Big brother. Chow Chow is here to take care of you." "Big brother?" "Chow Chow is here to take care of you." My mind went straight to the gutter. I figured she'd washed Mush through that crack in the door and wanted to try things herself. I swallowed hard and told her okay, let's lock the door first. She blinked at me innocently and asked why we'd need to lock the door just to put shoes on. Shoes. She was here to help me put on my shoes. I wanted to slap myself. Of course, a girl who's never been touched isn't going to waltz in and do what I was imagining. I stuck out my feet and let her lace up my shoes and wrap the leg bindings without another word. When she finished, she stood up and looked at me with big, hopeful eyes, like a kid waiting for a pat on the head. Instead, I leaned in close and asked what exactly she saw that night at the shed door. Her face turned the color of a tomato. She shook her head frantically and said she didn't see anything. I told her she stood there watching for a full 15 minutes. She panicked and blurted out, "I did not watch for 15 minutes. I only looked once and ran away." Then she realized she'd walked right into my trap. I laughed. She begged me not to tell Mush, terrified she'd get in trouble and be kicked out of the family. This girl is so scared of losing her place here. These few days with us have been the happiest since her mother died. I teased her one more time, suggesting that when she and I eventually do that together, we could let Mush peek from outside to make it fair. She yelped something about going to pick beans in the field and bolted out the door like a startled rabbit. I stretched, grinned, and ate a quick breakfast. Mother and Mush were both out, so I grabbed my fishing spear and headed for the door. But instead of walking toward the river, my feet somehow carried me toward Yang Yume's house. I told myself I was just checking on her since she lives alone and has a hard life. She was in her yard beating dust out of a blanket. I stood outside posing and waiting for her to notice me, but she didn't. After a while I lost patience and coughed loudly. She turned, saw me, and her face lit up. She dropped everything and ran over. She asked what I was doing here. I said I was heading to the river and just stopped by. She tilted her head and pointed out that the river is to the east, and her house is in the opposite direction. My face froze. Even with skin as thick as mine, I had nothing to say. She burst out laughing and gave me a playful look. She said I'm probably the only person who thinks about her, and guessed I came to invite her fishing so I could give her another fish. I jumped on that excuse immediately. She asked if we should go now. I could tell she wanted to spend time with me, even though she thinks of herself as damaged goods with no future. She can't help being drawn to someone who treats her like a human being. I held up the spear and told her to come on. I guarantee a big fish today. She smiled and said to wait while she grabbed some old shoes. But before she could turn around, a nasty voice rang out from next door. "Oh look, the widow's getting itchy. Worn-out shoes growing weeds. Ready to ruin whatever reputation she has left? Pretty face doesn't matter when you're a curse. Only man she can get is a useless bum nobody else wants." Yume's face went white, and she dropped her head in shame. I turned and saw a big, heavy-set woman sitting on top of the wall between the two houses, cracking sunflower seeds and sneering at us. With one sentence, she'd insulted both of us. The loudmouth's name was Sun Guifeng, the village's biggest gossip. She spends every day at the crossroads talking trash about everyone. Having her as a neighbor, Yume must catch hell constantly. Yume tried to explain calmly that I was just being kind to a woman living alone, nothing more. But Sun Guifeng wasn't having it. She called Yume a slut, told her she should become a prostitute if she wants men so badly, and said shameless women like her don't deserve to be alive. Then she got even nastier, saying I wasn't really here to go fishing. I was here to spear Yume in some dark corner. The language was so foul it made my skin crawl. Yume was shaking, tears building up. She turned to me with an apologetic look and said I should go alone. She doesn't want the fish anymore. She was ready to give up just to avoid more humiliation. I told her we've done nothing wrong, and she shouldn't be afraid of some loudmouth. I looked at Sun Guifeng and told her to watch her tongue and show some decency at her age. She just got louder, threatening to spread stories about us all over the village. Yume started crying. If this woman decides to smear her reputation, there'd be no way to clear her name. I stayed calm and smiled. Then I mentioned that Sun Guifeng's youngest son works as a buyer at an inn in town. Her face changed instantly. I told her that if she doesn't start being decent, the consequences might land on her son. People get jumped on dark roads all the time. If someone swings too hard, accidents happen. She screamed for her husband. Out came Yumungung, a big, stocky guy. He'd been eyeing Yume for himself, so seeing me with her put him in a bad mood. His wife told him I'd threatened their son, and he came charging at me. The second he got close, I thrust my fishing spear straight at him. He tripped and fell on his backside, face white as a sheet, sweat pouring down. He screamed that I'm trying to kill him. I walked over slowly, raised the spear high above my head, and drove it down hard. Yume screamed. The couple shut their eyes and howled like someone died. The spear stabbed into the soft dirt right next to his body. Not a scratch on him. He opened his eyes and stared up at me, absolutely terrified. In that moment, I stopped being the village weakling in his mind and became something much more dangerous. Sun Guifeng went dead silent too, still hateful behind those eyes, but she didn't dare open her mouth again. I pulled the spear out of the ground and asked them both, very quietly, "Do you think I'd actually kill someone?" Yumungung swallowed hard and said nothing. I pointed at Yume and told them my terms. Sun Guifeng can say whatever she wants about me. I don't care. But from today on, if she makes Yume's life miserable, I'll make their whole family's life impossible. I told them to test me if they don't believe it. Then I told them to get lost. Yumungung scrambled to his feet, grabbed his wife by the hair, and dragged her back into their yard. He slapped her twice across the face and cursed her out the whole way. He blamed her for everything. If she hadn't been running her mouth, none of this would have happened. Yume stood there watching me, eyes wide, hand over her chest. I could see it on her face. Something shifted inside her. Her neighbor's husband always brags about how tough he is, flexing his muscles. But the moment he faced me, he collapsed like wet paper. She was looking at me like she was seeing a real man for the first time. Yume watched the whole thing in shock. She'd never seen that couple get what they deserved before. Yumungung couldn't beat me, so he took it out on his own wife. Listening to Sun Guifeng's wailing, Yume admitted it felt satisfying after years of being bullied by that woman. I told Yume to come to me if those two ever bother her again. She thanked me with teary eyes. I told her not to thank me. If I hadn't come by to chat, the gossip wouldn't have had an excuse to start trouble. Yume told me something that made my blood boil. Sun Guifeng had actually tried to recruit her as a prostitute before, offering to find her clients and split the money. When things were at their worst, Yume had almost agreed just to survive. I told her those days are over. Then I said I'd better go fishing alone. If we walk together, people will talk and damage her reputation. She sighed and nodded. I told her the usual deal. If I catch extra, I'll bring some over. She mentioned quietly that she'd overheard my mother saying she's against us being around each other. I told her not to worry about what anyone thinks. I said there's an old saying. If you stopped planting crops every time you heard a cricket chirp, you'd starve. Live for yourself, not for other people's opinions. She looked at me differently after that, surprised a rough guy like me could say something so thoughtful. Then she blushed and whispered that maybe I should come by at night instead. Nobody can see in the dark, so there'd be no gossip. My imagination ran wild for a second. She caught the look on my face, told me not to get any ideas, and ran back into her yard. As I walked away, I could hear the sounds coming from next door. Yumungung had found a different way to punish his wife. Poor Yume had to live next to that every day. I headed to the river with my spear. Every good spot was already taken by villagers swinging sticks at the water, useless technique. I found a quiet stretch with smooth stones, crushed a crab for bait, and waited. Half an hour passed. Nothing. Then finally a black fish appeared, slowly following the scent of my bait. I stood up, ready to strike. Right then, a rock splashed into the water right in front of me. The fish bolted. I spun around, furious. A boy, maybe 10 years old, stood there with his hands on his hips, grinning. He said if he can't eat fish, neither can I. Then he called me a bastard and told me I'm not allowed at the river anymore. I snapped. I marched over and slapped him hard across the face. He hit the ground, one cheek swelling up instantly, crying and screaming. He threatened to tell Uncle Yang, meaning Yang Dahu, the bully. I put 2 and 2 together fast. This kid's father, Hu Jiaowang, is a cripple with no power. So Yang Dahu must be his mother's lover, his wild daddy. The boy cursed at me with language no 10-year-old should know, threatening that Yang Dahu would break my legs and turn me into a beggar who fights dogs for scraps. Clearly Yang Dahu had been coaching the kid. I smiled and said since he brought up Yang Dahu's name, I'd give him a bonus on Yang Dahu's behalf. I wound up and slapped him again, so hard the kid went airborne, flipped over, and crashed to the ground. There, one more, courtesy of your Uncle Yang. The kid was completely dazed from that slap, couldn't even hear straight. I told him to go ahead and tattle to Yang Dahu. If that thug has the guts, he can come find me. I smacked the kid's head a few more times, kicked him once for good measure, and told him to disappear. He stumbled off, crying toward the village. My fists were clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. I'd actually wanted to do worse. I'm not some soft-hearted saint. I'm a mercenary. And I could see real evil in that boy's eyes. Evil isn't about age. It's about what's inside. That kid is going to grow up worse than Yang Dahu if nobody straightens him out. I forced myself to stop thinking about it and went back to waiting by the river. I sat there until sunset before a fat carp, 4 or 5 pounds, finally swam over. One thrust of the spear and it was done. I split the fish in half with a sharp stone, put the tail half in my basket, and carried the head half to Yume's house. It was completely dark. No lights anywhere in the village. Nobody can afford candles. I climbed over Yume's low wall and crept to her door. I knocked softly. Who's there? She called, sounding scared. I couldn't resist. Open up, sis, it's me. I'm my brother. What? I laughed and told her it's me with the fish. She told me to wait, and I heard rustling inside. She was getting dressed. When she opened the door, her clothes were neat, but her hair was messy and her cheeks were flushed. I stared a little too long. She glared and asked what I'm looking at. I handed over the fish and said today's catch was small, so I brought her half. She tried to refuse, saying I should save it for my own family. I told her if I'm bringing it, it means we're not short at home. She accepted it quietly, then asked if I was leaving already. I turned to go. She called my name. I spun around, hopeful. She just said, "Thank you," and shut the door fast. I stood there in the dark, wind in my face, feeling a bit foolish. Behind that door, I'm pretty sure she was leaning against the wood, half relieved and half disappointed. She'd almost invited me inside, but her good sense won out, for now. Back home, everyone was waiting to eat dinner with me. Afterward, I grabbed my new Yuanming sword and practiced in the yard. Mush watched me with dreamy eyes and said my skills look as good as any military experts. Chow Chow asked how Mush would know what military experts look like. Mush just smiled bitterly and didn't answer. Interesting, there's clearly something in her past she hasn't told me about. After sword practice, I picked up the bow. Then I got an idea. I grinned at the 2 girls and proposed a bet. I told them I'd blindfold myself, and if I can hit the bullseye within 3 arrows, they have to agree to one condition. If I miss, I'll buy them each a gift. They exchanged looks. Blindfolded in the dark? They thought there was no way. I asked if they dared. Then Mush, who's learning to be cautious around my tricks, asked what my condition would be. I leaned in close and told them. If I hit the target, both of them sleep in my room tonight. Mush's face went crimson. She said absolutely not. She can't do private things with Chow Chow watching. Chow Chow stared at the ground and mumbled that she hasn't even married me yet. She can't serve me like that. I put on my most offended face and told them they've got it all wrong. I said I just want to talk, discuss life, share dreams, have a meaningful conversation. Nothing inappropriate. I sighed dramatically and said it's tragic that my own women think I'm nothing but a pervert. I put on my most wounded, righteous expression. Those two girls didn't stand a chance against my acting. Within minutes, they both caved. Mush said she'd do whatever I want. Chow Chow apologized and called me the best person in the world. I solemnly swore that even if I hit the target, I wouldn't do anything inappropriate tonight. They could watch each other and keep me honest. They exchanged looks and agreed. After all, there's no way a blindfolded man hits a bullseye in the dark, right? Mush tied the cloth over my eyes. I pulled the first arrow and let it fly. It hit the wall, nowhere near the target. Both girls relaxed. Second arrow, it struck the edge of the wooden target. They tensed up. Chow Chow whispered to Mush, asking if the blindfold was really secure. Mush waved her hand in front of my face to check. Third arrow. I drew the bow, made a tiny adjustment upward, and released. The arrow cut through the air and slammed dead center into the bullseye. Chow Chow screamed with excitement and started jumping up and down, calling me the greatest man alive. She completely forgot what was at stake. Mush just rubbed her forehead and sighed. I ripped off the blindfold with a grin and reminded them, a bet is a bet. Both of you, my room, tonight. Chow Chow suddenly remembered and panicked. But Mush, bless her heart, stepped up like a proper head wife and talked Chow Chow into it. A deal's a deal, she said. We'll just keep him company and chat. That's all. I strolled into the bedroom like a king. That night, I got my first taste of the dream. Both girls sleeping beside me under one blanket. I kept myself under control. Nothing beyond kissing, cuddling, and some wandering hands. Baby steps. The next morning before dawn, Mother saw both girls sneaking out of my room one after the other. She didn't say a word. She just smiled to herself, probably counting future grandchildren. I got up early, cooked grain porridge, and made fish soup from the leftover half of yesterday's carp. Chow Chow served Mother rice. Mush put fish in Mother's bowl. Everyone was warm and content. Then Chow Chow innocently asked why there was only half a fish. Before I could answer, Mother let out a cold snort and said somebody probably gave the other half to a certain widow who has her eyes on other women's husbands. Chow Chow ducked her head and stuck out her tongue. She hadn't meant to cause trouble. I finished eating quietly, packed my gear, and was heading out to hunt when Mother grabbed my sleeve. She looked me in the eye and asked point blank, "Are you interested in that widow, Yang Yume? Tell me the truth." I shook my head and said I just feel sorry for her living alone. Mother rolled her eyes and said she raised me. She knows exactly what I'm like. If Yume were a man or ugly, would I be so generous? I gave an embarrassed laugh. She saw right through me. She sighed and told me seriously, "It's fine to help Yume out since I have the means now. But under no circumstances should I marry her and bring her into this house." I stared at Mother with wide eyes. She was actually telling me it's fine to fool around with Yume on the side. Just don't bring her home as a wife. That's my mother for you. Pretty progressive in her own twisted way. I thought about Yume's beautiful face and that mature body of hers. Honestly, the arrangement didn't sound terrible. Mother said Yume is a disaster magnet. Fine for fun, but whoever marries her will regret it. I knew I couldn't change her mind, so I just nodded along and headed out. The morning mountain trail was slippery with dew. I followed my little path deep into the forest and crouched in the tall grass to wait. After hunting deer, I'm not interested in rabbits and pheasants anymore. They don't bring enough money. But today my luck was garbage. A deer appeared and I sneezed, scaring it away. After that, nothing for hours. Just as I was about to give up, I heard a hissing sound behind me. My skin crawled instantly. Snake. I turned slowly and saw a white patterned snake with a golden tail, rearing its head, flicking its tongue at me. A gold-tail white flower snake. Extremely venomous, but incredibly valuable as medicine. Most people would run. I got excited. In my past life, I dealt with venomous snakes all the time in jungle operations. Catching one alive is no problem for me. I jumped forward and pinned the back half of the snake with my foot. It whipped around and struck at me lightning fast. But I was faster. I clamped its head with my bare hand. I tied it up with a strip torn from my shirt, jammed a stick in its mouth so it couldn't bite, and dropped it in my basket. On the way down, I ran into two pheasants, a male and a female. They tried to outsmart me by splitting up and running in opposite directions. I laughed and shot them both with 2 arrows. I went straight to the medicine shop. The old owner recognized me immediately and came running. I joked that I'd brought wild chickens. He laughed nervously and said those belong at a restaurant, not a pharmacy. Then I set the basket on his counter and told him to open it. He peeked inside and nearly fell over. Gold-tail white flower snake. He shook his head and said not killing me the first time I came in was clearly the right call. I'm the kind of maniac who catches deadly snakes with his bare hands. He offered 5 tails. He admitted he'd flip it to a bigger shop in the county seat for about 8. If I wanted the full price, I could make the trip myself. I thought about it and decided the convenience was worth the cut. I slapped the counter and took the 5 tails. Then I took the 2 pheasants to the hidden arsenal instead of the restaurant. I owe Miss You a debt for that sword, and dropping off a small gift is just good manners. When I walked in, she was chewing out her workers. She saw the pheasants in my hands and immediately started mocking me, asking if I'm using a legendary dragon-slaying weapon to hunt chickens, and whether I plan to repay her generosity with poultry. I set the birds down and told her to relax. It's just a little something to eat. Right then, a cough came from the back room. That mysterious figure behind the screen again. Miss Yu's attitude flipped instantly. Her voice turned soft, and she thanked me politely, then called for tea. I glanced at her, then at the back room. Something is definitely going on here. There's a secret behind this woman and whoever is pulling her strings. I can feel it. Being called young masterly for the first time in 2 lives gave me goosebumps. Miss Yu's whole attitude had flipped the moment that cough came from the back room. Whoever's behind that screen is calling the shots. She asked me to call her Meng Dai instead of Miss Yu, so I agreed and told her to just call me Li Hong. The tea she served was incredible. Even someone like me who knows nothing about tea could tell it was top quality. I noticed she'd been upset when I walked in, yelling at her workers. I asked if something was troubling her. She gave me a look and asked if I'm that eager to repay my debt. I told her honestly, owing people makes me uncomfortable. She said she can't talk about it yet, but when the time comes, she won't be shy about asking for help. I gave her my address in Pingshire Village and told her to send someone when she needs me. Then I got up to leave. She stopped me and asked an unexpected question. What grade am I? I had no idea what she meant. The original owner of this body was useless, so there's nothing about this in his memories. She explained that in the Great Qin dynasty, martial artists can register with the government for an official rank from 1 to 9. Each rank comes with a monthly salary. Level 1 gets 1 tael of silver per month. Level 5, a military training instructor who teaches 3 days a month, gets 40 taels. Level 9 masters earn 300 taels monthly, but they're all serving in the imperial capital. My eyes lit up. 300 taels a month. Based on my current abilities, I'm definitely not below level 5 at minimum. I asked her how to get ranked. She laughed and said she has friends in the military who can arrange it. She told me to wait for good news. I didn't doubt her for a second. If she didn't have military connections, she couldn't be selling army weapons in her shop. What I didn't know was the conversation happening after I left. Meng Dai and her teacher were discussing some fight with a Japanese swordsman, a warrior as strong as a level 5 master. They need someone to beat him, but can't risk losing. The teacher advised her to ask the emperor for help rather than handle it alone. He said the emperor values being consulted. Doing things without his approval looks like overstepping, but asking shows respect and good judgment. I walked out, bought 2 buns from a street vendor, and wolfed them down. I had 5 taels in my pocket and decided not to give all of it to Mother this time. That old lady is too stingy. She'd lock the money away and never spend a single coin. That doesn't fit my philosophy of actually enjoying life. Then a bigger idea hit me. As my family grows, more wives, eventually children, our little shack won't be enough. I should talk to Chinfuzi about buying some land and building a proper house. Every wife gets her own room, and I rotate between them on a schedule. Just then, a traveling peddler walked by carrying goods on a shoulder pole. I stopped him and asked to see small gifts that women would like. Relationships need nurturing. And my dream of sharing one big bed with all my wives? That takes constant groundwork. The peddler opened his box and showed me everything. Candy figurines, pastries, osmanthus cakes, and little hair accessories for women. I picked out 4 matching gold-colored hairpins. They weren't real gold, just melted copper coins shaped into pins, but they looked nice enough. He wanted 1 tael of silver for the 4. I told him to throw in 2 pounds of crispy candy, and we had a deal. He agreed. Then I spotted a fancier pin with pearl flowers on it. He said it's the kind rich ladies wear and wanted another full tael for just that one. I thought about it, pulled out 2 silver nuggets, and paid for everything. The peddler's eyes went wide. He hadn't expected a guy in rags to flash that kind of cash. He threw in 2 free candy figurines out of sheer gratitude. 2 taels is more than he usually makes in almost a week. I packed everything carefully into my basket. Before heading home, I noticed a crowd rushing toward the west gate. People were saying something about the Zhao family's second young master handing out money. Free silver? Can't miss that. At the west gate, a fancy stage was set up. A young man in a purple silk robe sat in an expensive chair, looking smug. 2 servants stood beside him, one writing names, one handing out coins. People lined up and answered questions. Some walked away with a string of copper coins. Others left empty-handed. I'd heard the Zhao family's son was going to take the imperial exams. A scholar standing nearby laughed and explained that the one taking exams is the eldest son. This is the second son, a complete idiot who can barely read. He told me what this is really about. The second young master got humiliated at a brothel in the county capital. Now he's recruiting men to help him settle the score. Apparently, there's some kind of competition coming up, literary and martial contests, and the winner gets to be the favorite companion of the top courtesans. When my turn came, I hopped onto the stage. The second young master's eyes lit up when he saw how I moved. He asked my name and where I'm from. I told him. He asked if I know martial arts and if I can read. I pointed to my bow, arrows, and the Yuan Ming sword on my back. I told him I'm a hunter with combat skills, and I went to school long enough to read. He clapped his hands and called me a talent. He shoved a whole string of copper coins into my hand and told me to meet him the day after tomorrow to go to Qinglong County with him. Do a good job, and there'll be a big reward. I pocketed the money and agreed. I'm not planning to stand him up. The Zhao family has serious influence in this town, and this second son doesn't seem very bright. Exactly the kind of person I can use in the future. Plus, it's a good excuse to check out the county capital and see if there are better opportunities there. When I got home, Mother and Mush were airing out the bedding. Chow Chow was at the stove struggling with a pot of rough rice. Mother told me she'd been counting the days. Muyue should be coming home soon. Once she's back, she'll handle the wedding arrangements for me and Chow Chow. Then Mother dropped a bombshell. She said whichever daughter-in-law gets pregnant first with a Li family baby will get the household keys, meaning control over the family finances and the right to run the house. Both Mush and Chow Chow turned pink at that announcement. I noticed both girls react to Mother's announcement about the keys. Good. A little healthy competition will keep things harmonious, and if they want to become the lady of the house, they'll need my help getting pregnant. Maybe they'll stop being so shy and start sneaking into my room on their own. I pulled out 3 gold hairpins and gave 1 each to Mush and Chow Chow, saving the 3rd for Muyue. Mush's eyes sparkled, but she immediately asked if they were expensive. I told her not to kill the mood. If I can afford it, I'll buy it. If I can't, asking won't change anything. I slipped the pin into Mush's hair. It wasn't fancy, but on a face like hers, even a simple pin looks expensive. She glowed with happiness, though I think it's less about the jewelry and more about how I treat her. I pinned one in Xiao Xiao's hair too and told her this is her stamp. She's officially my woman now. Tears ran down her cheeks. She promised to serve me her whole life, just like Mother said, treat me like a master and care for me like a little brother. Then I noticed Mother quietly turning to leave. She was happy for us, but she'd seen me give gifts to all my wives and nothing to her. She was trying not to show it. I called her back. She made an excuse about being tired. I smiled and pulled out the special pin, the one with pearl flowers that cost a full tael by itself. Mush and Chow Chow both gasped at how beautiful it was. I told Mush to put it on Mother and sent Chow Chow to fetch a mirror. Mother protested, saying I should return it and save the money. I told her the shop won't take refunds. I know how parents work. Buy them nothing and they feel neglected, buy them something and they feel guilty about the cost. Watching the 3 of them laugh together around that cracked old mirror, I quietly exhaled. Smart move buying Mother's pins separately and making it nicer than the others. Family problems always start from tiny things like this. Better to prevent the crack than try to fix it later. After dinner, I fell asleep and woke up past midnight. Mush was curled against my arm, frowning slightly in her sleep. I kissed her cheek, tucked in her blanket, and slipped out quietly. Full moon tonight, bright as a lantern. I walked straight to Yume's house, hesitated at the gate for a moment, then climbed over the wall. I felt like a burglar, except I'm delivering gifts, not stealing anything. Good thing I'm not actually a creep, because with my skills, no lock in this village could stop me. I tapped on her door and whispered who I am. After a moment, I heard rustling. She opened the door fully dressed, looking at me with those sad, complicated eyes, like I'm some heartbreaker who wronged her. She sighed and scolded me for making a habit of sneaking to a widow's door at night. She said if the village chief finds out, he'll have me beaten. I laughed nervously and told her I bought her something in town but couldn't come during the day. I pulled out the fourth gold hairpin. Her eyes went wide. She shook her head immediately and said it's too valuable. It's not appropriate. I should give it to my wives instead. I shrugged and said my women all have theirs already. If she doesn't want it, I'll throw it away. I raised my arm high, pretending to hurl it into the darkness. Don't. She lunged forward and snatched it out of my hand. I grinned. Relax, I wasn't going to throw it. I just held it up so you could see it better in the moonlight. She glared at me, then couldn't help laughing. You're terrible, she said. Always teasing. I can't stand you. When a woman calls you a bad guy, it means you can be even worse. When she says she hates you, it means she's thrilled inside. I've been around enough women to know this. I told Yume to put the hairpin on. She refused but stepped backward into her doorway, then asked what I'm still standing there for. I asked if she wants me to come in or leave. She said she doesn't care. Up to me. I stepped inside, acting casual, saying it's my first time visiting her home. Her heart was clearly pounding. She peeked outside nervously, then bolted the door shut. The place was bare, one bed, one chair, nothing else. She lit a red candle, left over from her wedding, and the warm light made her gorgeous face even more stunning. I noticed a poetry book on her bed, a collection from the previous dynasty. I told her to hide it well. Keeping literature from a fallen dynasty could mean trouble. Then she opened a box and told me to take off my clothes. My jaw dropped. She rolled her eyes and pulled out a sewing kit. She wanted to mend my rags. When I hesitated, her face fell. She said she forgot I have a mother and wives at home who can do this for me. I stripped down to my underclothes immediately and tossed her everything. She shrieked when the pants came off too, but I told her I'm still covered underneath. She sat on the bed sewing by candlelight, and I watched her. A woman this beautiful, treated like a curse by the whole world. What a waste. She finished quickly. Her needlework is excellent. Every hole patched up neatly. I thanked her and said I'd buy her new thread to replace what she used. She told me to leave, not looking up. I opened the door and stepped out. Then her voice came from behind me, quiet and serious. Li Hung, you want me, don't you? I froze. My heart raced. This answer matters. She pressed on. Are you like every other man? Just want to have your fun and walk away? I turned around and looked her in the eye. I said yes, I'm attracted to her. She's beautiful and she has something the other women don't. As a man, there's nothing strange about wanting her. But I'm not the type to use someone and disappear. She blushed and scolded me for being crude. But she was smiling. Then she said, stop calling me sister-in-law. Don't keep reminding me that I was married once and killed my husband. I suggested silly nicknames. She cut me off and said to call her Yumejia, Big Sister Yume. Then she told me to leave and added one condition. The day I convince my stubborn mother to accept her, I can come to her door in broad daylight. She put the hairpin in her hair. Under the moonlight, she looked absolutely radiant. That is a real problem, though. Mother would lose her mind if she knew I'm sneaking around with the village widow. Bringing Yume home officially? That might start a war. Walking back from her house, lost in thought, I wandered all the way to the edge of the village without realizing it. Near the tree line, I was about to relieve myself when I heard footsteps and voices nearby. Japanese. Two people speaking Japanese. My eyes narrowed. What are Japanese people doing out here in the middle of the night, near my village? I dropped into the tall grass and went completely still, every instinct from my mercenary days snapping to attention. Two shadowy figures crept along the path, each carrying a heavy sack on their shoulders. One stopped and said something in Japanese. The other answered in perfect Great Qian language, scolding him. Their boss Takeshita said they must speak the local language if they want to conquer this nation. They started talking about their operation. They're kidnapping young women and sending them to flower boats, floating brothels. They need 300 women total and already have 150. They discussed rewards they'd get once the delivery is complete. Every word hit me like a hammer. My killing instinct exploded. I jumped out of the grass. One of them, Yamamoto, pulled a short blade and lunged at me. Fast, but I'm faster. I leaned back, kicked the knife out of his hand, sent it spinning into the air, then caught it behind my back. Before he could blink, I stepped forward and slashed his throat open. He grabbed his neck, blood spraying, and collapsed. The other one, Miyamoto, shoved his sack aside and ran. I threw the knife and buried it in his thigh. He went down screaming, then turned and yelled at me in broken language, calling me an idiot and threatening that I'll pay for killing a Great Eastern warrior. I kicked him in the head casually. I told him this is a funny time to make threats instead of begging. I asked where they're keeping the captured women. He refused to talk, tried to act tough. I told him I'll give him one sentence to say something useful. If it's not interesting, he dies. He puffed up and said Eastern warriors aren't afraid of death. I shrugged and stabbed him through the chest. He choked on black blood, eyes bulging with shock. He couldn't believe I didn't even bother with torture. I just killed him on the spot. That's not how it works in his world. But I'm not from his world. I dumped both bodies in a ditch, cleaned the short blade, and kept it. Nice weapon. My broadsword is great, but too bulky to carry everywhere. This dagger fits the bill. Then I turned to the two sacks. I opened them and found what I expected. Two young women, bound and gagged. Both wore blue silk dresses, faces dirty but clearly from wealthy families. One was a mistress, the other her maid. The maid spat out her gag and gasped for air, immediately checking on her mistress. The young lady looked at me cautiously, then asked what happened to the two men. I said they're dead. The maid freaked out and pulled her mistress away from me like I'm the dangerous one. That rubbed me the wrong way. I snapped at them. Would they have preferred I let those men haul them off to a floating brothel? Both their faces went white when I said, brothel. I told them those men were Japanese agents collecting women. Once they hit their quota, every one of them gets shipped off to serve as prostitutes. I pointed at both of them and said I just saved their lives. The least they can do is help me with a small favor. The two women introduced themselves. The maid is called Sueju, and her mistress is Hishinchi. When I told them what I needed, for them to serve as witnesses when I report the kidnapping operation to the town magistrate, Shinchi smiled and said that would be easy. Then she asked me to escort them home. I said we should go to the magistrate first since those captured women are in danger. She laughed softly and said if I take her home, I'll find the magistrate right there. Sueju giggled and explained. Magistrate He Pingyan is her father. Shinchi is his beloved daughter. I rubbed my nose in disbelief. I just randomly wandered out for a stroll tonight and ended up saving the magistrate's own daughter. Talk about luck. On the walk back, I kept the two girls laughing with jokes and stories. Shinchi told me to call her by her first name. I warned them both to keep tonight's kidnapping secret. If word got out that two unmarried girls were snatched by men in the night, it could ruin their chances of finding good husbands. Sueju stuck out her tongue and said she almost blabbed without thinking. Shinchi asked if those 100+ women can really be rescued. She doubted it since her father doesn't have many soldiers and we don't even know where the women are being held. I told her not to worry. The Japanese hideout can't be far, and there aren't many places in this area where you can hide over 100 women without being noticed. Her father is a smart man. He'll figure it out. She also warned me not to mention killing those two men to her father. Even though they were criminals, her father is strict about the law and might punish me for it. We reached the magistrate's residence to find the place lit up like daytime, soldiers standing everywhere. Obviously, the magistrate's daughter going missing had set off a full alarm. A servant spotted Shinchi and ran inside screaming that the young lady is back. Moments later, He Pingyan came running out in full armor. He checked his daughter over, then noticed me standing behind her. He recognized me from the restaurant. I bowed and gave him the cover story Shinchi and I had agreed on. She'd gotten lost while sightseeing in the countryside, and I happened to run into them and escorted them home. He Pingyan stared at me for a long moment, then told Shinchi and Suju to go inside. He pulled me to a quiet corner and his face turned cold. Tell me the truth, he said. What really happened? I looked at him surprised. He laughed coldly and said he's not stupid or blind. Countryside sightseeing? Getting lost? Then why do they look like they've been through hell? I gave He Pingin a thumbs up and said he saw right through the cover story. He told me to cut the flattery and talk. So I told him the truth. Japanese agents kidnapped his daughter, and I happened to run into them and rescued her. I explained their whole operation. They're snatching young women across the region to send to floating brothels. They've already grabbed at least 150 girls. His face went dark with rage. He cursed the Japanese and said they deserved death for targeting his own daughter. Then he thanked me and told me to keep quiet about everything. Getting involved any deeper could get me killed. I pushed back. I asked him point-blank whether he's going to do something about those 100-plus women. He gave me a cold look and said it's none of my business. I told him my safety isn't his concern, just answer the question. He sighed and said he wants to help but can't. The Japanese situation is far more complicated than I realize. He's just a small-town magistrate with 30 soldiers total, 8 on town patrol, 5 guarding the jail. That leaves 17. Going against the Japanese with 17 men is suicide. I suggested he report it to the county. He said he will, but he can't guarantee they'll act. I asked which county official could actually handle this. He looked at me suspiciously, wondering if I don't trust him. I told him honestly. As magistrate, he has to protect his position, but I'm just a commoner with nothing to lose. He gave me a name, General Chun Hualong at the Qinglong County Military Camp. The general hates the Japanese with a passion and would act immediately if he knew. But getting an audience with him wouldn't be easy for someone like me. I told him not to worry about that. Before I left, he stopped me and said something genuinely touching. Since I saved his daughter, I'm a friend of his family, and if I ever face trouble, he'll protect my whole household. Nice words, but I don't need protection. If anyone gets in my way, I'll handle it myself in the dark with a blade. I got home late. As I was about to go to bed, I spotted a figure sneaking into the yard. I hid behind the gate and watched. It was Chow Chow, creeping back from somewhere outside. Strange, a young unmarried girl, out alone at this hour? I didn't confront her. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with her deadbeat father, Pan Laowai. I filed it away and went to sleep. Next morning I slept late. After a quick bowl of porridge, I told Mother I'm heading to Qinglong County to look for business opportunities. I also mentioned that by my count, Muyue should be coming home tomorrow. I said I'd buy colored paper and red candles for a proper wedding night. Can't have the ceremony be too shabby. Mother beamed. She told me to buy good food too, since Muyue has probably been eating poorly and needs nourishing. I noticed Mush and Chow Chow weren't wearing the hairpins I bought them. Chow Chow smiled and said they agreed to wait until Muyue comes home so all three can wear them together for the first time. Sisters showing solidarity. I like that. I strapped the Yuan Ming sword to my waist, hid the Japanese dagger inside my shirt, and told Mother not to wait up. I might be home late tonight. Mother told me to come home early since I'm a family man now. She looked at Mush and Chow Chow and told them to learn to keep their husband in line. The two girls exchanged helpless glances. They wouldn't dare try to control me. Mush especially. She remembers what life was like when the original me was in charge. She'd rather die than go back to that. I kissed Mush on the cheek and headed out laughing. First stop, the hidden arsenal. I put the Japanese dagger on the counter to show Mingdai. She glanced at it and said her shop sells weapons, doesn't buy them. I told her I'm not selling, just showing her the craftsmanship. The Japanese are scum, but their metalwork is worth studying. Then I asked about the martial arts ranking she'd mentioned before. She smirked and said she thought I'd forgotten. She opened a drawer, pulled out a yellow envelope, and tossed it to me. A recommendation letter. I tucked it away carefully. She asked how I planned to thank her. I told her straight. I already owe her, so whatever she needs, just name it. She said she does have something, but she'll tell me after I get my rank assessed. I warned her that I have principles. I won't do anything that crosses my moral line. If she tells me to cut my own throat, I'm not doing it. She laughed and said the saying about a man knowing what's right and wrong is interesting, and promised her request won't violate my conscience. Then she told me to take her letter to the Qinglong County Military Camp and find General Chen Hualong. He'll arrange my assessment. She added that if I can't even pass level 1, I shouldn't bother coming back. She'd be embarrassed to call me a friend. I pretended to be shocked that she considers me a friend. She glared. I grinned. Then I mentioned I'm also looking for General Chen for another reason. She asked if I want to join the army. I hesitated, unsure whether to tell her about the Japanese situation. She got annoyed and said if I won't share, fine. She thought we were friends, but clearly she was wrong. I caved and told her everything. The kidnapping operation, the 100+ women, the flower boats, how the magistrate wants to help but doesn't have the manpower. She slammed her fist on the table, eyes blazing with murder. She said if she ever rules this land, she'll slaughter every last one of those Japanese invaders. That outburst caught me off guard. I told her to be careful. Talking about ruling the country could get her labeled a rebel. She caught herself and calmed down. She confirmed that General Chun is the right person. He's the only one in the entire county with both the hatred for the Japanese and the military force to act. Then she pulled a jeweled hairpin from her own hair and handed it to me. She said if the general hesitates, show him this pin and tell him it's her order. Rescue every last one of those women, no exceptions. I took the pin and studied her face. This woman is no ordinary shop owner. She sells military weapons openly with no consequences. She writes recommendation letters to generals. And now she's issuing commands to a military commander using a personal token of authority. At this point, even if she told me she's the emperor's own daughter, I'd probably believe her. She looked at me and said, "Li Heng, you're an upright man. I respect that. When this is over, I'll remember what you've done." I asked Ming Dai what kind of reward I'd get. She asked what I want. I rubbed my fingers together in the universal money gesture and said cash would be nice. Isn't life all about getting rich and climbing the ladder? She rolled her eyes and called me shallow. I told her there's nothing wrong with good people getting rich. In fact, all the wealth in the world should be in honest people's hands. Then nobody would starve. She couldn't argue with that, even though she wanted to. I said goodbye and headed for Qinglong County. On the road, I hitched a ride on a farmer's ox cart for 2 copper coins. Even so, I didn't arrive until evening. I found an inn, got a room, ordered 2 dishes, and ate well. After dark, I asked around for directions to General Chun Hualong's residence and went straight there. The general's mansion sat in the center of the county, right next to the government offices. Stone lions at the gate, bigger than the ones at the courthouse. I knocked hard on the red doors. A servant opened up and asked what I want. I told him I need to see General Chun. He said the general's asleep and to come back tomorrow. I pulled out Mingdia's jeweled hairpin. The servant laughed and asked which brothel girl sent me with a gift. I went cold and told him if he doesn't deliver it right now, he'll lose his head for delaying urgent business. His face changed. He took the pin and ran inside. A minute later, he came back respectful and polite. The general will see me. I walked through a courtyard decorated with weapons everywhere, even spears hanging from the trees as ornaments. The servant pointed me to a candlelit room in the back. I knocked and announced myself. A deep voice told me to enter. I pushed open the door and froze. A man in his 30s wearing a silk robe stood there with a drawn bow aimed directly at my face. My hand shot to the Yuanming sword handle. One wrong move, and I was ready to fight. He slowly lowered the bow, clapped his hands, and nodded with approval. He said I have the eyes of a killer. No wonder, miss, you recommended me personally. He asked for the letter. I confirmed he's really General Chun. He grinned and spread his arms, the genuine article. I handed over Mengdia's letter. He read it, frowned, and said I just want a martial arts ranking for the monthly salary, not to enlist. I nodded honestly. He looked disappointed but agreed to arrange an assessment tomorrow. He was about to dismiss me when I stopped him. I said there's also official business. I asked how he feels about the Japanese. The room went ice cold. His eyes turned razor sharp. He barked at me to spit it out. I told him everything. The kidnapping ring, the flower boats, the 150 women already captured, the magistrate's inability to act. As I spoke, the general's expression transformed into pure killing intent. He squeezed his teacup so hard it shattered in his hand. Blood and tea dripped onto the floor. He didn't even flinch. I exhaled quietly. He Pinyin was right. This man truly hates the Japanese with every fiber of his being. Those captured women might actually have a chance now. I'm confident in my own abilities, but I'm not delusional enough to think I can take on an organized Japanese operation alone. General Chun and his 10,000 soldiers? That changes everything. No matter how bold those invaders are, they'll have to think twice. Chun Hualong spun around, eyes burning, and shouted at me. Li Heng, do you know where those women are being held? I told Xin Hualong I don't know exactly where the women are being held, but the Japanese were operating near Dongming town, so their hideout can't be far. There aren't many places in that area where you can stash over 100 women without being noticed. His eyes lit up. He started calling for his men immediately. I could tell he already had a plan forming. I bowed and told him I'm staying at the GON. Send someone for me tomorrow when he's ready for my assessment. A weight lifted off my chest. Those women might actually be saved. Leaving the mansion, I was heading back to the inn when I saw fireworks exploding over the south end of the city. I'd been in this world for a while now and hadn't once stopped to enjoy myself. Why not take a look? The south side had a beautiful lake with a stone bridge lit up like a festival. Young men and women from wealthy families were gathered there, the boys setting off fireworks to impress girls. These are daughters of officials and merchants, nothing like my wives who were handed out for free by the government. Standing at the top of that bridge, I couldn't help thinking, no matter the era, class is always the hardest gap to cross. While I was lost in thought, someone slammed into my back. I turned around. A scholar in white robes was glaring at me, calling me a commoner who doesn't belong on this bridge. I started to walk away. He demanded an apology, saying I bumped into him. I stopped cold. He'd crashed into me, and now he's blaming me? I drew the Yuan Ming sword and pressed it against his neck. I told him he walked into my back with his blind eyes, and now he's running his mouth. One more word, and I'll cut out his tongue. He'd never seen anything like this. His legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the bridge steps, face white, speechless. After a moment, he found his voice and started threatening me. His father is Ho Yaoqiang, the county's biggest grain merchant, and they'll have me tortured to death. I pointed out that he threatened me with being sliced to pieces, chopped into segments, and then made to wish I was dead, all at the same time. I asked if he studied logic at all. I leaned down close and told him threats don't work on me. I've got nothing to lose. If he pushes me, I'll kill him and run. Simple math. He was drenched in sweat, trembling. Then a smooth voice came from behind me. Young Master Ho? The scholar's eyes lit up and he screamed for help. Master Wang. Save me. This madman is going to kill me. I turned and saw an elegant man in white robes with long black hair draped over his shoulders. Handsome face, but thin and feminine looking. He bowed slightly and asked me to put away my sword as a favor to his mistress. He said young Master Ho is a friend of hers. I asked who his mistress is. He said, Miss Mingwu of the Lingyan Pavilion. I paused. Lingyan Pavilion? Isn't that a brothel? A flash of displeasure crossed his face. He said Miss Mingwu may work at the pavilion, but she's a woman of virtue who only socializes through poetry and art. He asked me to show some respect. I smiled apologetically, though inside I was skeptical. In my view, women in brothels all end up the same way. Either they're selling themselves now, or they're building up their price to sell themselves later to the highest bidder. Right then, Ho Tianming went completely berserk. He started screaming that he'd rather die than let me disrespect Miss Mingwu, thrashing around like a man possessed. Looking at Ho Tianming screaming about dying for some brothel girl's honor, I felt genuinely sad for this country. No wonder a tiny island nation can bully a massive empire. The men here have no real backbone. They won't fight invaders, but they'll throw their lives away over a prostitute. If most men in this dynasty are like this, it truly deserves to fall. I kicked him and told him to shut up. One more word, and I'll slap him with the flat of my blade. That sobered him right up. The elegant man introduced himself as Wang Chongwan. He said his mistress, Miss Mingwu, already knows what's happening and asks me to release Ho Tianming. In return, she promises to help me if I ever need anything in the future. I thought about it, sheathed my sword, and said fine. I never planned to actually hurt the idiot, but I'm not letting him go for free. I rubbed my fingers together and told Wang I'm a simple man. I don't need future favors from some courtesan I've never met. I need cash. Right now? Call it compensation for emotional distress. Wang looked confused. I spelled it out. The kid insulted me and threatened me first. Paying me is only fair. Wang turned to Ho Tianming and asked if he's willing. The kid couldn't agree fast enough. He pulled 2 neatly folded bank notes from his robe. 200 taels of silver. 200. My eyes nearly popped out. I'd been thinking 10 or 20 to teach him a lesson. This fool just casually hands over a fortune. I snatched the notes, stuffed them in my shirt, then did something beautiful. I pulled Ho Tianming to his feet, dusted him off, bowed to him, and apologized for being too rough. I told him we should let bygones be bygones. No hard feelings between new friends, right? The idiot ate it up completely. He puffed himself back up, waved his sleeve like a gentleman, said it's nothing, and strolled away acting dignified. He'd already forgotten about the 200 taels. I patted my chest and said what a generous, wonderful person he is. Wang couldn't help laughing. He said, yeah, getting pinned down and humiliated, then paying 200 taels for the privilege. What a saint. We both cracked up. Then Wang got serious. He said his mistress sent him not to save Ho Tianming, but to protect me. The kid's father, Ho Yaoqiang, is a powerful grain merchant in this county, not someone to take lightly. I was surprised. I asked why a woman I've never met would care about my safety. Wang said he doesn't know either, but if I'm curious, Miss Mingwu will explain when they eventually meet face to face. I thought about it. This mystery courtesan. She seems like a friend, not an enemy. Wang warned me that Ho Tianming isn't the forgiving type. Being humiliated publicly on that bridge tonight, he'll want revenge. I thanked him for the heads up and introduced myself. I asked him to tell his mistress I appreciate what she did, and I understand she can't meet me openly right now. I glanced at the pleasure boats on the lake. She was probably watching from one of them this whole time. I told him I'll thank her personally when we get the chance, then turned and walked down the bridge into the night with 200 taels heavier and a new mystery on my mind. Behind me, as I disappeared into the darkness, a shadow emerged from one of the boat cabins and whispered, "Miss, he's gone." What I didn't know was the conversation happening on that boat after I left. Wang Chenghuan spoke, but in a woman's voice. He was actually a woman in disguise. She called Meng Dai, my sister, and said it's no surprise her sibling took an interest in me. When her servant suggested sabotaging me to hurt the sister's plans, Wang shut him down coldly. She said no matter how fierce the competition between them gets, it stays within the rules. She won't harm innocent people or damage the Empire's interests just to win. Then she decided to step back and let things play out. If I can't even handle a merchant family like the house, I'm not worth her sister's attention anyway. Back at the inn, I practiced the Taoist 8 brocades all night. I thought about Wang Chenghuan and that unsettling feminine energy. Talking to that person had felt deeply wrong, and now I understood why. By morning I felt incredible. Sharp, strong, overflowing with power. A soldier came from General Chun and brought me to the military camp on the edge of the county. 10,000 troops. Battle-hardened men training in full armor. Walking through that camp stirred something in me, both unfamiliar and deeply familiar at the same time. Inside Chen Hualong's tent, he asked me one more time if I really won't enlist. I told him I have a mother and wives depending on me. He snorted and called it nonsense. Every soldier has a family. I told him respectfully that we all have different paths, and mine isn't this one. In my past life, I was nothing but a killing machine until the day I died. If heaven gave me a second chance just to repeat that, I'd rather not have it. He went quiet for a long moment, then dropped the subject. He asked what rank I'm testing for. I said 5, military instructor level. He grabbed his sword and led me to the training field. He climbed a platform, signaled with a flag, and the soldiers cleared the center. Then he drew his sword and pointed it at the sky. The entire army erupted. Kill, kill, kill. The force of 10,000 voices hit me like a physical wall. I clenched my fists, even I felt the pressure. Then Shun Hualong pointed at me and told his men I'm an arrogant outsider who thinks their battlefield skills are garbage, and I'm here to show them what real martial arts looks like. Every single soldier glared at me with murder in their eyes. I wanted to strangle Chen Hualong. That lying bastard just painted a target on my back. Soldiers started volunteering to fight me, shouting over each other. One yelled he'd poke 1,000 holes in me with his spear. Chen Hualong raised his fist, and the field went silent instantly. I have to admit, the man has presence. I looked at him sideways and said this isn't fair. Even if I pass, these soldiers might shoot me in the back later. He laughed and said his men are simple and honest. Beat them with real skill, and they'll respect me forever. He explained the 3 tests for a level 5 ranking: horsemanship, archery, and hand-to-hand combat. Fail the first one, and the rest don't matter. I nodded and told him to get started. Being stared to death by angry soldiers is worse than actually fighting them. He smiled, clapped his hands, and called out, "Bring the horse." Soldiers brought out the horses. These were tall war horses, 2.5 meters high, long legs, pure muscle. Chun Hualong told me to pick one, ride to a hill in the south, grab a bronze incense burner, and bring it back before a stick of incense burns down. That's the first test. I studied the horses and picked the most temperamental one, a chestnut stallion with an attitude. If I'm going to impress these soldiers, might as well go big. I sprinted over, vaulted onto its back in 3 quick moves, and grabbed the reins midair. The soldiers actually cheered at that. But the horse wasn't having it. It thrashed its head, rocked its body, tried everything to throw me off. The soldiers grinned, waiting for me to eat dirt. I channeled my internal energy, let out a thundering shout, and yanked the reins so hard the horse stumbled sideways. That broke its spirit. I squeezed my legs, yelled, "Go!" and the horse exploded into a full gallop out of camp. Behind me, I heard a flag soldier tell the general that this horse is a wild crossbreed they got from Western traders. Even the general himself had trouble taming it. Chun Hualong just grunted and told them to light the incense. Then, the cheater, he ordered soldiers to blow on the incense to make it burn faster. I rode like the wind. In my past life, horseback riding was both a job skill and a hobby. When I reached the hill, I didn't even dismount. I leaned off the side of the galloping horse, scooped up the bronze burner with one hand, while holding the reins with the other, swung back into the saddle, wheeled around, and charged back. When I rode into camp, Chun Hualong's eyes went wide. The incense was only 2/3 burned. I'd beaten even his personal record. I noticed the soldiers blowing on the incense stick and couldn't help laughing bitterly. I told the general that was a dirty move. He kept a straight face and said he can't control what his men do on their own. First test passed. I asked to start the second test immediately. I didn't want to waste time. I had to meet up with the Zhao family's second son later. Chun Hualong was surprised I didn't need rest. I told him I'm not that fragile. For the archery test, they set up 12 wooden targets in a line, spaced about 10 meters apart. I'd ride through the middle on horseback and shoot all the arrows in my quiver in one pass there and back. Hit 8 or more targets and I pass. I slung the quiver over my shoulder, jumped on the horse, and rode to the starting line. War drums erupted from every direction. Boom, 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 boom. Then the soldiers roared in unison. Something stirred deep inside me. I love this. No matter how many times I'm reborn, I'm a soldier at the core. That will never change. I kicked the horse into a sprint. What happened next left every man in that camp speechless. My horse was fast, but my hands were faster. At full gallop, 10 meters between targets isn't enough time for a normal archer to draw, aim, and shoot. But for me, it's as natural as breathing. Every time I passed a target, one arrow, one hit. I didn't need the return trip. I emptied the entire quiver in a single pass. I rode back slowly, casually. Chun Hualong watched me with a complicated expression, a mix of admiration and frustration. He wanted me in his army badly, but I'd already refused. And since I came recommended by Miss Yu, he couldn't exactly kidnap me and force me to enlist. With anyone else, he probably would have. The soldier came back from checking the targets and reported to General Chun. All 12 hit. Every single one. Nobody said a word. Every eye in that camp was on me. Chun Hualong shook his head slowly and muttered something about my archery being otherworldly, one of a kind. I didn't argue. When it comes to the bow, I honestly don't think anyone in this world can match me. He tried one more time, looking at me with intense eyes. He said with my skill level, I could command a 500-man archer battalion. The captain's pay is 3 taels of silver per month, plus the instructor's salary on top. No combat required during peacetime, just training. 3 taels a month? I make more than that in 2 days of hunting. And spending every day drilling soldiers when I could be home with my wives exploring new activities? No contest. I told him my mind is made up. It's not that I have no patriotism. If the day comes when this nation truly needs me, I'll step up. But right now, I have too many people counting on me at home. He sighed and said fine, but at least train some of his men to shoot properly. He said if he had 10,000 marksmen like me, he'd personally lead the charge to invade the Japanese islands. I rolled my eyes and told him archery takes natural talent. I'll teach everything I know, but how much each soldier absorbs depends on them. Then he asked if we can start the third test. He smiled mysteriously, drew his sword, and shouted to the troops, "Brothers, with the archery Li Heng just showed you, does he deserve to be our archery instructor?" Thousands of voices roared back. Yes. 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 I was confused. Chun Hualong explained that the formal test is just procedure. What matters is real ability. Since I'd already won the respect of his battle-hardened soldiers, the third test was technically unnecessary. But then his expression turned cold. He pointed his sword at me and said he wants to fight me himself. Not as a test. He just wants to see how much I'm still hiding. I asked if that's really necessary. He said if I refuse, my entire assessment is void. Fine. I drew the Yuanming sword. We clashed. The fight was intense from the first second, sword against broadsword, sparks everywhere. At first we were evenly matched, but as I figured out his swordsmanship style, I started taking over. I pressed him harder and harder. He was shocked. He hadn't expected this kind of raw power from my thin frame. Every strike I landed hit harder than the last. I swept his sword aside, leaped into the air, and brought my blade crashing down. He blocked with both hands on his hilt, but the force drove him backward. One foot slipped off the edge of the platform. I stopped. I sheathed my sword, bowed, and said he fought well. He stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. He said it's been forever since he had a fight that good. He pulled a sealed envelope from inside his armor, my commission papers. Already prepared. He told me my duties. Pick 3 days each month to train his archer battalions, and collect my salary on the last day of each month. He said to take the papers to the magistrate's office too. Having the title of military instructor would earn me serious respect. Even bandits won't dare set foot in my village once word gets around. I hadn't thought about the status angle. I was mostly excited about working 3 days a month for a big paycheck. But deep down, I know, if war comes and they need me to fight the Japanese, I won't say no. Fighting those invaders is carved into my bones. Doesn't matter which world, which lifetime. That's always priority number one. With my commission papers in hand, I grabbed a set of military training clothes from the camp. I stripped off my patched-up rags and put on the uniform. Looking at myself in the bronze mirror, I had to nod. Clothes make the man. In rags, call me a hunter. In this outfit, you'd better call me instructor. Chun Hualong noticed I'd used internal energy during our fight and called me out on it. I just smiled. Then I asked if I could buy a horse. He nearly exploded. Every war horse is a brother in arms, he said. They live and die on the battlefield, not pulling carts for farmers. I calmed him down and explained I just want a retired horse, something too old for combat. I'd treat it well. He stared at me for a long time, then agreed. No charge. But I had to promise to take good care of it, never eat its meat, and when it dies, send the body back to camp for a proper burial. I gave him my word. He took me to a small fenced area beside the main stables where a few older horses were grazing peacefully. They looked better than I expected, still tall and strong, just past their fighting years. I picked a jet black horse with just a hint of white around the eyes. They fitted it with a saddle and bridle and let it out. Even old, this horse held its head high like royalty. I jumped on its back and felt a rush of excitement. With this horse, a trip to town that used to take hours would take minutes. I named it Wu Jue, after the legendary mount of the ancient warrior King Xiangyu, though that history doesn't exist in this world. I rode back to town, and the inn boy didn't even recognize me. I tossed him some coins and told him to give my horse premium feed and salt water. He was thrilled. After settling Wu Jue at the inn, I walked to the south gate to wait for the Zhao family's second son, who should be arriving from Dongming town today. I found a tea house and sat outside with a cup. While I was waiting, I overheard 2 men at the next table talking. An old man said a local girl went out to dig potatoes yesterday and never came home. The 4th disappearance this month. His friend sighed and said nobody knows who's snatching these women. Then the old man mentioned something that made my ears perk up. He said a blacksmith's assistant was taking a shortcut through the countryside to deliver some supplies. Near a rundown shack by South Melon Village, he heard women crying inside. Sounded like a lot of them. My eyes sharpened. That could be where the Japanese are keeping the kidnapped women. I walked over to their table, pulled up a chair, and sat down with a smile. I offered to pay for their tea and said I'm just looking for some conversation. That opened them right up. I steered the chat toward the missing girls. The old man got a little suspicious and asked why I'm interested. I told him honestly that girls have been disappearing around Dongming town too, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. He relaxed and said the local authorities have been investigating but haven't found anything. I filed away every detail. South Melon Village, Broken shack, women crying. I need to get this information to General Chun as soon as possible. I cut the old man off before he could keep rambling and asked specifically about the blacksmith's assistant. Where exactly did he hear the crying women? The old man said it was on a side road heading to South Melon Village, in some broken-down shack. Nobody dared check because they heard it at night and couldn't tell if it was humans or ghosts. And nobody reported it to the authorities either. If it turns out to be nothing, you get 20 lashes for filing a false report. That was all I needed. I'd pass this to General Chen later. Soon the Zhao family's second son arrived at the city gate, riding a fine horse in fancy silk clothes, a line of hired men behind him. He spotted me and was surprised I'd come early. He loved my new outfit, thought I'd bought it specifically to not embarrass him. I played along and said of course, I couldn't show up in rags to represent him. He tossed me a 5-tail silver nugget as a reward. Everyone else's eyes went green with envy. He gave the hired men 10 coins each for food and went into a restaurant with his steward. Then I heard someone call my name. It was the scholar from the sign-up day, Zhou Chuanen, a failed exam candidate, smart and straightforward. I liked him. He explained what tonight is really about. The county's famous pleasure house, Lingyan Pavilion, is hosting a poetry competition. The winners get to spend the night with the top 5 courtesans. Young Master Zhao has his heart set on one of them. The steward called me upstairs to eat with the young master. Zhao had ordered a massive feast, but looked miserable after a few drinks. He asked me to sit beside him and talk honestly. So we did. He told me his real name, Zhao Dian. Dian means stepping stone. His older brother is Zhao Gong. Gong means success. His father named them that way on purpose. The younger exists only to boost the older. A living tool. He said he acts like a brainless playboy on purpose. If he showed any ambition or ability, his brother and his brother's people would eliminate him. Playing stupid keeps him alive. Then he said something that made my ears ring. 5 years ago, his brother got sick, and when he recovered, he was like a completely different person, cold, calculating, terrifying. Like someone else was wearing his skin. A chill ran through me. A different person? Could someone else have transmigrated into this world too, just like me? I pushed the thought aside. That's too unlikely. I told him to keep playing dumb. At least he stays fed and alive. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes and asked, if someone murdered your mother when you were a child, would you pretend to be stupid forever, or would you take revenge? My jaw tightened. He wasn't just talking about family rivalry anymore. He said he suspects his brother killed his mother, but has no proof yet. He's been investigating secretly. If he ever finds evidence, he'll destroy his brother even if it costs his own life. I raised my glass and toasted him. I told him I hope he succeeds. Then he made his real request. He wants to hire me to build a private force, recruit trustworthy people, train them, so when the day comes to face his brother, he won't be completely defenseless. Even if his mother's death wasn't the brother's doing, once their father dies, Zhao Gong will never let a rival heir survive. I agreed to Zhao Dian's proposal right away. His plan lined up perfectly with my own thinking. In a world like this, you need loyal men at your back. I told him I'd handle the recruiting, but he's funding it. He didn't hesitate. Before we left the room, we struck palms 3 times to seal the deal. He said once we walk out that door, he goes back to being the idiot playboy, and I go back to being his lackey. Nobody can know. I told him not to worry about the recruiting getting me in trouble. I'm now an official level 5 military instructor, appointed by General Chen himself. That gives me legal cover to organize armed men. Zhao Dian's eyes lit up when he heard that. He slapped his hands together and said that changes everything. When night fell, we headed to the Lingyan Pavilion. The whole building was decorated with lanterns and packed with spectators. The doorman explained the pricing. 10 taels for standing room on the first floor, 50 for second floor seats with tea and snacks, and 100 taels for the third floor VIP section. The only spot the courtesans on the 4th floor can actually see from above. Zhao Dian didn't blink. He slapped down a 100-tael note and said he refuses to compete with commoners. He took me in as his attendant. Before going inside, I pulled Zhou Chuanen aside. I asked him to run to General Chen's mansion and deliver a message for me. The tip about the crying women near South Melon Village. He agreed without fuss. I told him there might be reward money in it for him. Upstairs, the 3rd floor was elegant. Tea, snacks, fine paper and brushes for the poetry competition. Zhao Jian looked up at the 4th floor with its 5 doors, 1 for each top courtesan. and made a crude comment about wanting to sleep with all five. I told him to watch his mouth at a poetry event. He grabbed a brush and wrote a few characters. His calligraphy was actually excellent. Not quite as good as mine, but impressive. This guy is definitely hiding his real abilities behind that fool's mask. Then a small, dirty-faced girl in ragged clothes appeared beside us, trembling. She asked quietly if we wanted to buy her. She could be cheaper. Zhao Dian waved her away in disgust, but something in her eyes softened me up. I asked what she needs. She said her mother is sick and she needs 1 tael of silver for medicine. Her older cousin sings here and snuck her in, hoping someone might take pity. I pulled a silver nugget from my pocket and tossed it at her feet. She dropped to her knees, crying and thanking me over and over. She said her name is Lu Rumong and told me where she lives, said if I ever want to collect my reward, I can find her there. Zhao Jian gave me a funny look and said for a village farmer, I throw money around pretty casually. I told him that sticking close to a generous young master like him, I can afford to be kind. The truth is, a few days ago, 1 tael felt like a lot. But after collecting 200 taels from that idiot Ho Tianming alone, my sense of money has completely shifted. The pavilion kept filling up. Rich young men crowded the upper floors, hoping that being closer to the courtesans would give them an edge. The poor scholars stood down below on the first floor, dreaming that tonight might be the night their talent finally gets noticed. Pipa music started playing, and 5 women in gorgeous dresses and thin face veils walked out onto the 4th floor, escorted by their maids. The whole building went dead quiet. Every man in the place suddenly tried to look refined and cultured, like flipping a switch. I looked up too. These 5 courtesans have been hyped up as goddesses. They'd better be something special. The veils covering their faces were probably the most annoying pieces of fabric in every man's life tonight. Dancing girls ran around the floors putting on a show, heating up the atmosphere. It's still a brothel at the end of the day, no matter how much poetry they wrap around it. Then I noticed Zhao Jian grinding his teeth, glaring at someone across the room. A guy in purple silk robes was staring right back with equal hatred. His name is Hu Xian, Zhao Dian's rival. Apparently, this guy not only stole a woman from him once, but also sent street thugs to rough him up. That's the real reason Zhao Jian hired all these men. He told me he doesn't care about sleeping with any courtesan tonight. He just wants to beat Hu Xian and get his pride back. I pointed out a problem. The guys he hired are all scholars and farmers. If Hu Xian brings actual fighters, our side will crumble. They'll run the second punches start flying, and I'll be left alone against a gang while Zhao Jian stands there defenseless. His face went pale. He actually suggested we go apologize to Hu Xian and call it even. I told him sure. Hu Xian would probably just make him kneel and call him Grandpa 100 times. Zhao Jian immediately exploded. He'd rather die than do that. I told him to relax. I'm here. Nothing bad will happen. I compared the situation to a folk saying about a short hero holding up the sky. He asked who that hero is. I said he's a talented, handsome young man from my hometown. Looks a lot like Zhao Dian, actually. He nodded proudly. Then the show officially started. A beautiful hostess came out, bowed to all 4 floors, and announced the poetry competition. Each of the 5 courtesans would set a topic, and the men must write a poem to win her favor. The courtesans' names were Peony, Peony Rose, Silver Snow, Willow Brow, and Red Jade. I couldn't help thinking those names scream brothel. Zhao Jian agreed they're tacky but insisted the women themselves are stunning. He said spending a night with any of them would make an emperor skip court for a week. Peony went first. She's from the south, grew up on the river, so her topic was simple: write a poem about a river. The moment they heard the word river, half the room panicked. Writing pretty verses about flowers to impress uneducated village girls is one thing. Writing real poetry about a river in a room full of competitors? Most of these guys would rather disappear than embarrass themselves. Some men started thinking hard. Others picked up their brushes and forced themselves to write. The scholars on the first floor had paid 10 taels to be here. They couldn't afford to waste their money without at least trying. The moment I heard the topic, river, dozens of classic poems flooded my mind. In my past life, I spent my downtime studying ancient Chinese literature. Poetry from every dynasty? I know it all. Zhao Jian frowned and struggled, then wrote something. I glanced at it and told him honestly. That poem wouldn't even get a second look from Peony. He laughed awkwardly and asked if I could do better. I picked up the brush. The instant I started writing, Zhao Dian's eyes went wide. He could tell from my calligraphy alone that this was the real deal. When I finished, he read it several times, then stared at me in shock. He said with talent like mine, I could pass the imperial exams and become the top scholar. He called his own brother a mediocrity compared to me. I wasn't being modest. Every poem in my head comes from thousands of years of Chinese civilization. Any single one would crush what these so-called scholars can produce. I told him to sign his own name on it. He did, then sent it upstairs. While we waited, Zhao Jian explained something I hadn't considered. These poor scholars aren't just chasing women. They're investing in their careers. If a famous courtesan notices them, their own reputation soars overnight. And these courtesans are wealthy and connected. Getting one's favor means having a patron for your political career. Smart thinking. I gave him a thumbs up for that insight. The results came in. Peony selected her top 3 poems, and Zhao Dian's name wasn't among them. I was stunned. I'd written Li Bai's Gazing at Tianmen Mountain, one of the greatest river poems in all of Chinese history, and it didn't even make top 3? Zhao Jian was furious, slamming the table and shouting about a rigged competition. I told him to calm down and keep his dignity. Then the hostess asked, which one is young Master Zhao Dian? Before he could react, I answered for him. He snapped back into character, flipped open his fan, and coolly announced himself. The hostess turned serious. She said Peony's message is that his poem actually deserved first place, but since he didn't write it himself, it was disqualified. The poetry competition judges talent, and having someone else write for you disrespects both himself and the actual writer. We both froze and looked up at the 4th floor. Peony had watched the whole thing from above. She saw me write it and him sign it. The scholars on the 1st floor pounced like wolves, mocking Zhao Dian for cheating. Then Hu Xian stood up with a smug grin and told Zhao Dian he should save his money and hire a tutor instead of embarrassing himself at poetry events. Zhao Dian's face burned red. But then he did something I didn't expect. He slapped my shoulder, stood tall, and fired back. At least the man I brought isn't a fraud. My attendant, a mere book boy, wrote a poem that beat every single one of yours and took first place. Zhao Dian's bragging about his book boy beating everyone made the whole room furious. But before I could even react, he threw down another 100-tael note, slapped my shoulder, and told me to compete under my own name from now on. He said if his servant can outwrite every scholar here, what business do they have competing against him? Hu Xian jumped up immediately and protested. He said letting a servant compete alongside educated gentlemen is an insult. Others joined in, shouting about unfairness and possible cheating. Zhao Jian fired right back. If they're so much better than a book boy, prove it with poetry instead of complaints. Hu Xian demanded my poem be read aloud, so everyone can judge for themselves. Fine by me. I stepped forward and recited it from memory. The Tianmen Mountains split, the Great Chu River cuts through. Green waters flow east, then circle back again. 2 banks of blue mountains face each other rising. A lone sail drifts in from the edge of the sun. Dead silence. Then the room exploded. Scholars who actually knew good writing started slapping their legs and calling it brilliant. The poem is Li Bai's masterpiece, one of the greatest river poems ever written in Chinese history. Of course they were stunned. I looked at Hu Xian coldly and asked if my work meets his standards. Then I challenged him to share his own poem so we can all compare. Zhao Jian piled on, demanding Hu Xian recite his entry. Hu Xian's face went through every shade of red and white. He couldn't say a word. The hostess stepped in to calm things down, saying the competition lasts 3 days and tonight is just a warm-up. Everyone settled down. No point making the courtesans unhappy when the real prize is still up for grabs. They set me up with my own table, tea, and snacks on the 3rd floor. Zhao Jian grinned and told me to destroy everyone without mercy. The 2nd round came. Silver Snow's topic was, predictably, snow. A lot of guys had prepared snow poems in advance, so the competition was tighter. Hu Xian and Zhao Jian are both useless at writing. Hu Xian can barely form legible characters. My problem was the opposite. I know too many snow poems. I couldn't decide which one to use. Finally, I picked one, wrote it out in my best calligraphy, and handed it in. Zhao Jian rushed over and asked how I feel about my chances. I told him staying in the top 3 shouldn't be a problem. He slammed his fan on the table with excitement and started talking about sponsoring my education helping me pass the imperial exams, coming back to be an official in Qinglong County. He and I would run this whole place together. He was calling me brother, now without even realizing it. I just smiled and told him I need to go home after tonight's rounds. He asked why. It's a long walk and I'd have to come right back tomorrow. I told him not to worry about it. I have a horse now. The ride home takes less than half an hour. The results came in. Silver Snow picked her top 3. The hostess announced the names, and mine was among them. Again, Zhao Jian leaped to his feet cheering like a madman. Everyone else stared at me. The other 2 winners barely got noticed. All eyes were on the book boy, who'd made the top 3 twice in a row, humiliating every self-proclaimed scholar in the building. Zhao Jian was glowing with pride, acting like he'd discovered a genius. Hu Xian's face was dark as a storm cloud. Zhao Jian couldn't resist taunting him across the room, asking if he had anything else to say now. Hu Xian tried a different move. He looked directly at me and said with my talent, "It's a waste to serve a country bumpkin like Zhao Jian." He offered to take me under his wing instead. Better connections, better future. Zhao Jian jumped up furious, calling it shameless poaching. But I could see the fear in his eyes. If I actually switched sides, he'd become the biggest joke of the night. I shut it down calmly. I told Hu Xian my future isn't his concern. Zhao Jian takes care of me just fine. Then I addressed the whole room and said we're all here for poetry, so let's compete with talent instead of insults. That quieted things down. Even some of the scholars who'd been mocking us looked embarrassed. The hostess up front gave me a look of genuine respect. The rest of the evening's rounds went smoothly. When the night's competition ended, dancing girls came out, and the building went back to being a regular brothel. Zhao Jian wanted me to stay at an inn with him. I suggested he just sleep at the pavilion with some company, but he refused. If Hu Xian left, staying behind would make it look like he has lower standards. Then a pretty young servant girl came downstairs and told me Miss Peony has prepared wine and would like to discuss literature with me privately. Zhao Dian's eyes nearly fell out of his head with envy, but I turned it down. I told the girl it's too late and I need to get home. My mother worries. I'll apologize to Peony another time. Zhao Jian immediately tried to volunteer himself as a replacement. The girl giggled and said her mistress didn't invite him. Brutal. The moment I stepped outside, I sensed people following me. Hu Xian's men, obviously. I picked up my pace and lost them quickly. At the inn, I grabbed Wu Jue and rode for the city gate. On the dark street near the exit, a group of about 15 men with clubs blocked my path, clearly waiting for me. I reined in my horse and told them to move. The leader, a big bearded guy, planted his stick on the ground and called me a dead man. I drew the Yuanming sword. It hummed in the night air. I told them my blade doesn't care whether they're human or ghost. Some of them panicked and looked to their boss. The big guy puffed up and yelled for everyone to rush me at once. But then I kicked my horse forward and raised the sword high like I was going to split him in half. He broke first, ran to the side of the road, screaming at his men to attack. But with the boss running scared, not a single person dared step forward. I rode straight through the middle of them without anyone lifting a finger. As I passed, I fished 2 copper coins from my pocket and tossed them on the ground behind me. I told them to bring those coins back to their master and let him know I'll be coming to collect from him personally very soon. I don't sit around waiting to get hit. Now that I know Hu Xian sent those thugs, I'll deal with him soon enough. But first home. Wu Jue may be retired, but he's still way faster than a regular farm horse. Half an hour later, I was back at my village. When I rode through the gate into the yard, Mother came out swinging a wooden stick, ready to fight off intruders. Mush and Xiao Qiao were hiding behind her. When she saw me in my new black military uniform sitting on a tall horse, she didn't even recognize her own son. Xiao Qiao's eyes went wide with admiration. Mush stared at me and asked where the horse and clothes came from. I told them I'd been busy in the county for 2 days and made some money. Then I asked the question I'd been looking forward to all day. Where's Miyue? She should have been home yesterday. The smiles vanished. Mother sighed. Mush and Xiao Qiao dropped their heads. My stomach tightened. I told Mush to explain. She said Miyue can't come home. While working at the Ma family's place in Ma village, she accidentally broke something the old man claims is worth 20 taels of silver. If we can't pay, he's keeping her as his concubine. I exploded. 20 taels? That whole family isn't worth 20 taels. This is obviously a scam. The old man saw how beautiful Miyue is and cooked up an excuse to keep her. Mush asked where we'd find that kind of money. I laughed coldly. I'm not paying a single coin. Anyone who tries to take my wife from me is going to lose teeth. But Mother stepped in front of me. She said the Ma family has lots of men. They run that whole village, and the old man's third son works at the county military camp. She said we can't fight officials, and maybe Muyue would be fine there since they're a wealthy family. I pulled my sword and split a wooden post clean in half. No, I said. My eyes were burning. If a man can't even protect his own woman, he doesn't deserve to be alive. I'm going right now to bring Muyue home. Anyone who tries to stop me will regret being born. Mother tried to say something else. I cut her off, untied Wu Jue, jumped on his back, and told them I'd be back before sunrise. Then I rode off into the night. Ma village is only a few miles away. Wu Jue ran flat out and got me there fast. I tied him to a tree at the edge of the village and didn't rush in. The Ma family controls this place. If I alert everyone, getting Muyue out quietly becomes impossible. The original me used to come here to gamble, so I know the layout. The biggest house in the center belongs to Ma Dashin, the old man. I crept through the dark streets until I reached his compound. The second I got close, a dog inside started barking. I gritted my teeth, vaulted over the wall, and landed inside the yard. A big black dog lunged straight at me. I grabbed the dog by the neck and snapped it before it could make another sound. Quick and clean. From inside the main house, someone yelled at the dog to shut up. I pressed myself against the wall beneath a window and listened. A woman was telling her husband, the old man Ma Dashin, to let the girl go. She said something feels wrong and she's uneasy. She offered to find him other young women from nearby villages if he wants them so badly. The old man refused. He said Su Miyue is special. Her face, her body, nothing like ordinary village girls. He's convinced she's still untouched, and he's not letting that opportunity slip. He said he's already looked into her family. Her birth family is weak, her husband's family is poor, and her husband is a good-for-nothing troublemaker. Worst case, throw a couple silver coins and it's settled. Hearing that made my blood freeze. This dirty old man planned the whole thing from the start. I wanted to smash through the window right then, but I forced myself to stay calm. I spotted a rundown shed with a rusty lock on the door. I wedged my sword blade into the door fitting and pried the whole latch off with a sharp crack. I checked behind me. Nobody came out. Good. Inside the dark, dusty shed, a young woman was tied up tight, mouth gagged, staring at me with terrified eyes. Muyue. I rushed over, kept my voice low, and told her it's me. I'm here to bring her home. Recognition hit her face, and her eyes brightened instantly. I cut her ropes and pulled the gag from her mouth. She jumped up and told me to run. These people are all connected. If they catch us, we're finished. I grinned and told her I came specifically to get her. She's my wife. Nobody gets to touch her. Her cheeks flushed. She looked at me like I was a stranger, a better stranger than the man she remembered. I grabbed her hand and headed for the wall. But her legs had been tied too long. They'd gone numb. She stumbled and let out a yelp before she could stop herself. Too late. Ma Dashin's voice boomed from the house, calling his sons out. Within seconds, over a dozen family members poured into the yard from every direction. Men, women, all of them. I pulled Miyue to her feet. She begged me to leave without her, terrified I'd get hurt because of her. I told her when a man says he's taking his wife home, that's exactly what happens. Ma Dashin strolled out in a dirty old shirt, looked me up and down, and called Miyue his concubine. He asked who sent me to kidnap her. I spat on the ground. I told him to look carefully. Su Miyue is my lawfully married wife, and I'm Li Hung from Pingshire village. One of his sons found the dead dog and screamed for my blood. Ma Dashin waved him off and asked me calmly how I want to settle this. 20 taels of silver, or leave the woman. Miyue was crying, swearing she didn't break his precious jar on purpose. She barely touched it, and it fell apart on its own. The old man ignored her and stared at me, waiting for an answer. I twirled my sword and smiled. I looked around at their shabby house and asked what kind of jar is worth 20 taels when the whole family can barely afford to eat. Then I gave him my answer. I'm taking my wife home tonight, and I'm not paying you a single coin. Ma Dashin's wife stepped forward and planted herself in my path, daring me to try and leave. I told her to stand there and watch, because that's exactly what I'm doing. I suggested we report the whole thing to the magistrate and let the law decide if that jar is really worth 20 taels. That shut them up fast. The last thing they want is officials poking around their little scheme. Ma Dashin waved his hand and told his boys to grab me. Four big guys rushed at me at once. I swung my sword with one hand while holding Muyue with the other and drove two of them back. Then I leaped up, kicked one to the ground, and pressed my blade against his neck before anyone could blink. Nobody expected me to fight like that. Even Muyue stared at me with her mouth open, forgetting to be scared. The old man's wife started screaming and banging a bucket with a stick, calling the whole village for help. Within minutes, the yard was packed with neighbors. We were completely surrounded. I told Muyue not to panic. I've got this. The guy under my blade was Ma Jianku, the eldest son. He asked me to put the sword down and talk. I said no. If I let him go, the crowd tears me apart. I asked Ma Dashin straight, "Do you want your firstborn son alive or not?" His face went dark. He threatened to kill my whole family. I pressed the blade just enough to draw a thin line of blood across his son's neck. Ma Jianku screamed like a baby, begging his father to save him. The wife lost it completely. She grabbed her husband's arm, sobbing and screaming. "Is some pretty girl really worth more than your own son?" Ma Dashin closed his eyes and gave the order, "Open the gate. Let them go." I kept the blade on Ma Jianku's neck and made him walk ahead of me as a human shield all the way to the village entrance. The whole Ma family and half the village followed behind us, watching every step. Nobody trusted anybody. At the village edge, I kicked Ma Jianku to the ground, untied Wu Jue, and lifted Miyue onto the horse's back. I jumped up behind her. I bowed to Ma Dashin from the saddle and told him his useless son is returned as promised. He stared at me with murder in his eyes and said I'll pay for what I did tonight. I smiled and told him next time he crosses me, I won't be this polite. I wrapped my arms around Muyue and rode off into the darkness. Behind me, Ma Dashin slapped his eldest son across the face and screamed at him for being pathetic. He said if he'd known the boy would turn out this weak, he should have never been born. The wife came running to defend her son, cursing my name and demanding revenge. Ma Dashin turned to the gathered villagers, thanked them for their support, and played the victim perfectly. The crowd ate it up. Everyone swore loyalty, saying nobody who messes with my village gets away with it. The old man smiled at that, then looked in the direction I'd disappeared. His eyes were ice cold. This isn't over for him. But it's not over for me either. I know exactly what kind of man he is now. And next time, I won't come just to rescue someone. I'll come to finish it. I rode hard until my village was far behind us and nobody was following. Then I pulled the reins and helped Muyue down from the horse. She looked up at me nervously and said she didn't bring any money home and caused me trouble. She asked me to punish her. I told her to relax. She's the victim here, not the guilty one. It's all the Ma family's fault. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The old Li Heng would have slapped her just for coming home empty-handed. Kind words? Impossible. I showed off a little, flexed my arms, pointed at the horse, told her my body is completely healed. I'm stronger than ever. Then I got to the point. Since I'm healthy now, it's time we consummate our marriage. Her face turned red as a tomato. She whispered that my sister, meaning Mush, must have already taken care of that. I told her absolutely not. Mush insisted on waiting for her older sister to go first. You have no idea how long I've been waiting, I said, grabbing her hand. You're finally back. Your husband has been suffering. She couldn't even speak. I lifted her onto the horse, and we rode home. On the way, she felt something pressing against her back and asked what it is. I told her it's a weapon. She said my weapon is a big sword. I said I actually have two weapons. The big one is for enemies, and the small one is specifically for dealing with my wives. When we got home, everyone was still awake, sitting in the yard waiting. Mother had been planning to walk to town and report to the authorities if I wasn't back by sunrise. Mush ran to her sister, and they held each other crying. I went to the kitchen myself and cooked Miyue a bowl of pork porridge. She ate it in a daze, afraid she was dreaming and would wake up back in that dark shed. After eating, Miyue looked around the house properly for the first time. Same old building, but everything was clean. Mother, Mush, and even she herself were wearing new clothes. There was grain stored up and strips of pork belly hanging from hooks. Her eyes went wide. Then she noticed Xiao Xiao. I'd told her about Xiao Xiao on the ride home, so she already knew the story. Xiao Xiao walked over bravely and greeted her as Big Sister. Miyue smiled warmly, took her hand, and told her they're family now. No need to be formal. I watched from the side. half expecting some palace drama to break out. But honestly, the girls hit it off right away. Within minutes, they were chatting like old friends. Mother pulled me aside and asked what I said to make old man Ma let Miyue go. I sat down and told Mother the truth. Ma Dashin wasn't going to let Miyue go willingly. I'd planned to sneak her out quietly, but things went sideways, so I had to take her by force. I gave them the whole story. Xiao Xiao slammed the table with excitement and called me the greatest man alive. Mush worried that the Ma family might come looking for revenge and suggested she and her sister go hide somewhere. Muyue spoke up firmly. She said this is her mess and she should be the one to disappear so nobody else gets hurt. I shut that down immediately. I told her while her husband is still breathing, she's not carrying anything alone. Nobody needs to run. The Ma family can't do a thing to us. Mother surprised me. She told Miyue that if this were truly her fault, she wouldn't take sides. But if the Ma family is bullying her, she'd fight to her last breath to protect her daughter-in-law. Miyue broke down crying and called her Mom, swearing through tears that she'd serve me and the family faithfully and give the Leaf family children. I smiled and told her she doesn't need to swear for eternity, just this lifetime is fine. And anyone who tries to touch my wife better check if their neck is strong enough to handle what's coming. That night, I was too exhausted to cause any trouble. I crashed hard. Muyue and Mush sat up talking all night. They had a lot to catch up on. Mush whispered to her sister that I've changed completely. Muyue asked how. When did my body heal? How do I know martial arts and horseback riding? Mush explained the story about the old immortal who taught me meditation and how everything changed from that day. I stopped being violent toward them, started hunting and earning money. Though I also got a little naughty. Muyue noticed her sister blushing and asked directly, "Have you already slept with him?" Mush nodded, then shook her head, then leaned in and whispered the details of what I'd taught her to do instead of full consummation. Muyue's hand flew to her mouth in shock. That's when Mush yelped. She'd realized I was awake, sitting up in bed, watching them both with a big grin. I told them to keep talking. Then I hooked Mush's chin with my finger and suggested she explain everything properly to her sister, so when they both serve me together someday, Miyue won't be too shy to look at me. Mush jumped off the bed laughing and said she'll let us two have some alone time to catch up. Then she ran out the door. Miyue called after her, furious. Her own sister just sold her out. I pulled Miyue into my arms and kissed her forehead. I told her she's too thin and needs to eat more. She was touched for about 2 seconds. Then she noticed my eyes were locked on her collar and my hands were starting to wander. She covered her chest and squeaked that she needs to go check on Mush. I held her tight, pressed her head against my chest, and told her seriously, the time has come. We need to pick a date soon and properly consummate our marriage. With candles, decorations, the whole wedding night experience. She deserves nothing less. She looked up at me with soft eyes and said she doesn't need anything fancy. Just living a peaceful life with me and her sisters, taking care of Mother. That's enough for her. Such a sweet, selfless woman. It made my heart ache. I held her close, and we slept until morning. When we walked out together, Mother, Mush, and Xiao Xiao were in the yard picking wild vegetables. All three immediately stared at Muyue, checking how she walks. I shook my head and laughed. They're trying to figure out if something happened last night. I told Mother I'm heading to town for candles and decorations, and asked her to visit old Chinfuzi to pick a good date for the wedding night. Mother pulled me aside with a strange look on her face and whispered, "Son, tell me the truth. You're not actually unable to, are you?" I laughed and told Mother she's got it all wrong. I just want to do it properly with candles and decorations. A wedding night needs some ceremony. Mother's eyes lit up. She agreed that a proper consummation night should be special, especially now that we can afford it. I ate a quick breakfast, jumped on Wuzhuai, and rode to Dongming Town. First stop, the Hidden Arsenal. I showed Mingdai my official commission papers from General Chun. She glanced at them, and I thanked her for the recommendation. She rolled her eyes and said the stronger I get and the higher I climb, the bigger the favor she can eventually ask me for. I froze and stared at her suspiciously. I told her straight. If she's planning to use me against my country or its people, she can forget it. I'd rather die. She burst out laughing and said I'm flattering myself. A little level 5 instructor couldn't do anything that big even if she wanted me to. She noticed I rode in on a horse and recognized it as military stock. I told her proudly that Wuzhuai is retired and I'm his caretaker now. She said it's a good name. I told her I need to visit Magistrate He and then head to the county tonight. She asked why I keep going to the county at night. I told her about the Lingyan Pavilion poetry competition and how I'm trying to squeeze some silver out of the Zhao family's second son. The second I said, Lingyan Pavilion, her face changed completely. Her eyes flashed with anger. I was caught off guard and asked what's wrong. She caught herself quickly and tried to play it cool. She said she's just disappointed that I'm no different from other men, wasting time in a filthy brothel. She called the poetry competition nothing but a trick by scheming people. I told her a scholar is still a scholar even inside a brothel, and a fool in fancy clothes is still a fool. Then I grinned and said with that big reaction to the pavilion, I almost thought she was jealous, like she doesn't want me getting close to other women. Li Heng, she grabbed the teapot, ready to throw it at my head. I bolted out the door laughing. Getting under her skin felt great. She's always so composed and mysterious. Cracking that armor even once was deeply satisfying. After I left, I heard later that her attendant told her I'd played her on purpose. She admitted she knows. She said she respects me, talented, capable, honest. But I'm too unpredictable to control. The attendant suggested she stop trying to use me as a pawn and just treat me as a genuine friend. He said when the time comes, someone like me would go all in for a real friend without counting the cost. She went quiet for a while, then whispered that she wants to sit on the throne someday. To her, everyone is a tool. Even him. I went straight to Magistrate He's home, not his office. What I need to discuss is personal, and bringing it up officially would just make him angry. When Xianxi heard I'd arrived, she came out personally with Zizhu to greet me. Tea and pastries covered an entire table. And Xianxi herself, completely transformed from the dirty, terrified girl I'd rescued. Clean, polished, beautiful. Dark hair like silk, smooth skin, bright almond eyes, cherry lips. A real beauty. I looked a beat too long, then forced my eyes away. I have beauties at home already. Getting caught staring by her father would not be worth it. She offered me a pastry and asked what brings me here. I told her honestly, I'm not here to visit her. I need to see her father about something. Her smile froze. Sueju pouted and scolded me for having no manners. She said her mistress had specially dressed up and prepared all these snacks when she heard I was coming. Xianxi shut Sueju up quickly. I apologized for being too blunt and said I do consider her a friend. But inside, I was praying she doesn't have romantic feelings for me. She's lovely, but having He Pingyan as a father-in-law, that thought alone gives me a headache. I stuffed myself with pastries to fill the awkward silence until He Pingyan came home for lunch. He was in a good mood when he saw me and ordered extra dishes. We drank together. I buttered him up hard, praising him as a brilliant leader who serves his people selflessly. He laughed and told me to cut the flattery and get to the point. He said he owes me for saving his daughter, so as long as my request isn't outrageous, he'll help. I got serious. I told him I've got a problem, and I don't need him to solve it for me. I just need two things: step in as an official to ensure fairness, and send some men to protect my family. If he refuses, I warned him, I'll be forced to handle things my own way, and it won't be pretty. He understood exactly what I meant. If I go to my village at night with my skills and my sword, that whole place becomes a graveyard by morning. He told me to explain the situation first, and he'd decide if I'm in the right. So I told him the whole Ma Dashan story, with a healthy dose of exaggeration. I made it sound like they'd beaten and humiliated me, and I'd barely escaped with my wife. Then I played my trump card. I compared what Ma Dashan did to what the Japanese kidnappers are doing, snatching women against their will. That hit home. His own daughter had been kidnapped just days ago. He asked if I'd told General Chun about the Japanese situation. I said yes, and the general is launching an investigation immediately. He Pingyan relaxed and toasted me for that. But when I pushed again about protecting my family, he hesitated. He said as an official, he can't use government resources for private matters. That violates his principles. He reminded me that when he sent soldiers to search for his own daughter, that was different because he's an official and she's his family. I smiled coldly and stood up. I told him to go ahead and send those soldiers then, because protecting my family isn't private business either. He's an official, and so am I. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You're an official? What? A goat herder. I slapped General Chin's commission papers on the table and told him to read before he jokes. His eyes scanned the document. He stood up, half the alcohol evaporating from his system on the spot. Li Heng, this says you're a level 5 military instructor? I nodded. I told him to check the general's official seal if he has doubts. We can visit Shun Hualong together tomorrow if he still doesn't believe it. His whole attitude shifted. A minute ago I was a brave but reckless village hunter. Now I'm a young military official with a promising future. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Suddenly, his daughter spending time with Brotherly didn't seem like such a bad idea after all. I asked him a question. Between a town magistrate and a level 5 military instructor, who ranks higher? He thought carefully and said the magistrate holds a higher civil position, but a military instructor carries more influence within the army. Basically, we operate in different spheres. Neither can boss the other around. That was better than I expected. I looked him dead in the eye and said, Magistrate, I'm now asking you officially, as a fellow government servant, to send men to protect my family. Today, you're going to say yes, whether you want to or not. He pinged and agreed immediately. He said since I'm an officially appointed military instructor, having his men guard my family is perfectly within the rules. No abuse of power at all. He even offered to punish my Dashin for me. He said that bully has been causing trouble for years, and he's been looking for an excuse to deal with him. I turned him down. I told him he spent his whole career as a clean, honest official, and I won't be the one to make him bend his principles. Besides, I'm in the right here. If my Dashin wants to talk, I'll out-talk him. If he wants to fight, I'm his grandfather. He promised to send men to Pingshire village right away to secretly guard my family. If things get serious, they're authorized to reveal their government officers. No matter how tough the mob village people think they won't dare mess with the law. Before I left, he told me to say goodbye to Xianxi. Apparently the girl talks about me constantly, and it's driving him crazy. I froze for a second, trying to figure out if he's just venting or if he's actually nudging me toward his daughter. I shook that thought off. I already have 3 wives. No way a magistrate is rushing to marry his only daughter to me as a concubine. I knocked on Xianxi's door and told her I'm leaving. She came out with pink cheeks, smiling sweetly. She said if I'm too busy to think of her, she understands. We chatted lightly. She laughed at my thick skin. I promised to bring her live rabbits next time. She wants pets, not food. Her maid Suizhu overheard my okay hand gesture and told Xianxi it means I'm bringing 3 rabbits. I nearly tripped over the doorstep. Back in town, I hit the general store and bought red candles, colorful ribbons, and red paper with the double happiness character. Everything for a proper wedding night. Then I went to the restaurant. Manager Lu greeted me with his usual over-the-top enthusiasm, dusting off invisible dirt from my shoulders. He noticed I wasn't carrying my usual hunting basket and spotted the wedding decorations sticking out of my bag. He asked if I'm getting married. I couldn't exactly explain that I've been married for a while, but haven't consummated yet. So I just nodded and said something like that. I told him I need a few boxes of nice pastries. The good stuff. Money's no object. He sat me down, poured me tea, and said he's been thinking about me constantly. I gave him a look and said that sounds creepy. I'm not a brothel girl. Why is he fantasizing about me? He laughed and said he needs a favor. Of all the people he knows, I'm the only one who can help. I told him to go ahead and explain, but no promises. He leaned in and said he wants me to find him a bear gallbladder. He'll pay whatever it takes. My face changed. I asked why he doesn't just say he wants me to hunt a bear. And why the gallbladder specifically? His restaurant doesn't serve bear dishes. What does he need it for? Manager Lu spread his hands and told me this isn't for the restaurant. It's life or death. His uncle has been a heavy drinker his whole life, 3 times a day, and now he's having seizures. The doctor calls it an old man's disease and says it can be treated, but they need one key ingredient, bear gallbladder. The medicine will keep the uncle stable for 1 month, but if it comes back after that without proper treatment, even the gods can't save him. I thought about it carefully and gave him an honest answer. I told him I won't insult him by flat-out refusing, but he needs to understand. A bear isn't like a deer or a badger. Going after one of those beasts could get me killed, and finding one in the mountains isn't guaranteed either. I'll do my best, but I won't make promises I can't keep. He grabbed my hand and said that's exactly why he came to me. I'm the only person who gives him any hope. He offered 50 taels of silver for the gallbladder alone, plus another 10 for the hide, paws, and meat if I bring the whole bear to his restaurant. 60 taels total. That's serious money. I nodded, fair price. The waiter brought down 4 boxes of fancy pastries I'd ordered. When I asked how much, Lou refused to take my money. He said consider it a wedding gift from an older brother. I tried to argue, but he insisted, so I thanked him and took them. Riding home, I thought about that bear hunt. 60 tails would be huge, but bears are no joke. I'll need to plan carefully. At home, I handed the candles, ribbons, decorations, and pastries to the girls, then asked Mother about the date. She was beaming. Shenfuzi said 3 days from now is a lucky day. She could barely contain herself, going on about grandchildren finally being on the way. All 3 wives pretended to be busy with other things, but their ears were pointed straight at us like rabbits. Muyue especially. She knows she's first in line as the older sister. I opened the pastry boxes and told everyone to try some, but save the rest for the wedding night table. It's tradition. Mother mentioned that Shenfuzi wants us to throw a proper feast when I'm married Xiao Xiao officially. He wants to come drink wedding wine. Xiao Xiao panicked and said she doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. She's happy just being allowed to serve me at home. I looked at her closely. This girl is definitely hiding something. I remembered her sneaking around at night and decided I need to look into it quietly. I took her hand and promised her a real wedding with proper tables. Then I turned to the Su sisters and told them not to feel shortchanged. When they married in, we couldn't afford anything nice. But I promised that when they have babies, boy or girl, everyone gets the same celebration. Same rules, same treatment. A level playing field. Muyue smiled shyly and said my words are more than enough. Mush giggled. Mother looked at her 3 beautiful daughters-in-law and said we might as well marry Xiao Xiao officially at the same time. And if she can see us all settled and happy, she can die in peace. I told her to never say that again. She's going to live to 100. I need her around to help raise the 7 or 8 grandchildren I'm planning to produce. Her eyes got watery, and all 3 girls crowded around to comfort her. I stayed home until evening, then jumped on Wuzhuai and headed for the county. But on the way, I thought about Yume, the pretty widow. Something itched inside me, and before I knew it, my horse was drifting toward her house. It wasn't fully dark yet, so riding through the village on a big horse definitely got people's attention. From a distance, I could see Yume standing at her gate, chatting and laughing with a man. I recognized him immediately, Yang Dahu, the village bully. Strange. Ever since I slashed his stomach with a kitchen knife, he'd vanished. No revenge, no trouble. But I never dropped my guard. That guy has held grudges since childhood. He once hit his own father back in his sleep. I called out, Yumejia, from far away. Yang Dahu turned, shot me a poisonous look, said something to Yume, and left quickly. I jumped off the horse. Yume stared at me, rubbing her eyes, the new clothes, the horse. She couldn't believe it was me. Then she sighed and said I'm doing better every day, which means she wasted her time mending my old rags. I noticed she was holding a small bag. I asked what Yang Dahu wanted. She said he just brought her some grain, being nice since she lives alone. My eyes went cold. I told her Yang Dahu has never been nice to anyone in his life. If he's bringing gifts, he wants something, specifically her body. She shot back. And what about you? Bringing me fish, knocking on my door at midnight. You're not after anything? I held out my hand and said give me that bag. Before she could react, I snatched it, ripped it open, and dumped all the grain on the ground. She shrieked about the wasted food. I pulled a silver nugget from my pocket, pressed it into her palm, and told her to buy whatever she needs herself. Never accept anything from Yang Dahu again. She tried to give the silver back, saying she can't take money from someone who isn't her man. Something snapped inside me. The words came out before I could stop them. I may not be your man yet, but the children you'll have someday, those will definitely be mine. She stared at me, stunned. I hadn't planned to say it that bluntly, but the words were out. No taking them back. And honestly, I don't want to take them back. We stood there in silence for a long time. Then she asked me a few serious questions. First, everyone considers her a curse, a woman who can be used but never married. What do I think? I told her that's all garbage from ignorant villagers. Superstitious nonsense. Second, I already have 3 wives, all young virgins. She's been married before and her husband died. If she joins my family, how would I treat her? I told her I'd treat everyone equally. As far as I'm concerned, she married and her husband died the same night before they even touched. She's as pure as any maiden. Third, the hardest question, what about my mother? If my mother threatens to kill herself rather than accept Yume, what then? I thought for a good 15 seconds. Then I told her the truth. If my mother truly refuses, I'll I'll set up a separate house for Yume and take care of her there. And once I've won Mother over, and I will, I'll make the old lady walk to Yume's door herself to formally propose." She laughed at that. The tension broke. She gave me one of those looks, playful, warm, and said pretty words don't count. She needs to see action. Then she said, "The silver. I'll keep it." That's a yes. My heart caught fire. I took a step toward her. "Stop right there." She jumped back, eyes wide with alarm. She told me if I think she's cheap and try to take her body just like that, she'll bash her own head against the doorpost before she lets me. With my skills, I could have carried Yume inside in seconds. But I'm not that desperate. These things are better when both people want it. I told her she's got me wrong. I'd never force anything. She called me a bad person, but her tone said otherwise. I told her I'm heading to the county for business, and I'll bring her some fabric for a new dress. She asked why I'm going so late. I made up a story about a big business deal. If it works out, I can build a proper house in the village, marry more wives, and hire some guards. She believed me and told me to hurry before dark. She said she'd wait for me. I rode off thinking about Yang Daho. That thug showing up at Yume's door with gifts is bad news. He's been quiet since I cut him, but I know him. He's planning something. Bringing Yume grain is his way in. I need to deal with him before he makes a move. On the road to the county, I spotted a man at the entrance of a side street. Got a little closer and recognized him instantly. One of the guys from Ma Village who'd surrounded me last night. He recognized me too and bolted. I kicked my horse into a gallop, grabbed him by the hair at full speed, yanked him off his feet, and slammed him into the dirt. He tried playing dumb, said he's just a traveler, doesn't know what I'm talking about. I drew my sword and pressed it against his neck. Told him his acting is terrible. I recognized him from last night when he was screaming the loudest. He cracked fast. His name is Ma Tian. Ma Dashin sent him alone to scout my village, find out where I live, who's in my family, and if possible, steal Miwa back. If that fails, the old man plans to come with a group and take her by force. I asked why he was hovering at the village entrance instead of going in. He said he noticed unfamiliar men patrolling inside, and some of them looked like government officers from town. So he got nervous and was about to leave. Sharp eyes. I told him those are magistrates' men I arranged to protect my family. His jaw dropped. Then I pulled out a little brown pill, something I'd made from mountain herbs using knowledge from my past life. I grabbed his jaw, forced it open, and shoved the pill down his throat. He swallowed it before he could react, then looked at me in horror and asked what I fed him. I told him it's called leopard embryo tendon changing pill. In the short term, it's actually good for his body.